Good morning and welcome to the Mike Graham Show. I'm Mike Graham. Something wrong with my collar. What's going on with that? Hang on. It's this shirt, I think, which the collar kind of peeks out. It is too big for me, yeah, but it's not just that, because I've got other shirts that are too big for me.
He's wasting away.
I am wasting away. It's all this work I'm doing. Emma Wolf is here. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Ha! Got ya. It's not him. It's me. Of course, he's away. You know he's away. Mike is holidaying in the Chagos Islands, of course. He's away for this week, and I am filling his shoes. Hopefully fairly satisfactorily, but I guess you'll be the judge of that. Do get your comments coming in, but only nice ones, if you don't mind, not the nasty ones. He's a poor replacement for Mike Graham. Well, of course I am. I'm not Mike Graham. So good morning, everybody. I'm here all week, unless Pooch decides to fire me at the end of this session. We'll see after the next 3 hours or so. They have stuffed the next 3 hours, the production team here, with guests. I think they're my training wheels, in truth. Emma Wolf would be joining me in a second. Lee Nanalingam, which I can't say. Yeah, never mind. I'll keep practicing that, Lee. Sorry, can I just call him Lee?
Yeah, Lee's easy.
Rather than... Yeah. Why would you have a surname like Nanalingam?
I can't say it.
What does that even mean? Malcolm Offord, of course, which is a much easier thing to say. Christo Fufas, who's my kind of old Brexit sparring partner from Talk. I always thought Christo and I, should have had our own show, but no one was ever brave enough to put the two of us together for longer than about 5 or 10 minutes at a time on Talk or GB News. Siobhan White, who is the mother of Rhiannon White, which we will talk a lot more about in the context of Henry Novak, and obviously the fact that that is a story that dominated the news last week, and indeed I'm sure will this week too. We've got Anne Widdecombe, we've got Sunil Sharma, Mark Littlewood, Simon Danchuk. I mean, it's a smorgasbord of sensible, common sense commentators that I will be speaking to and contending with for the next 3 hours or so. Emma Wolf joins me. Emma, it's been a while. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm
Can
good.
we adjust this camera angle?
Look, no, there you are.
Okay.
Look at us all grown up still doing broadcast stuff. I mean, who would have thought?
Absolutely. All grown up. And still, I don't know. This is not a great camera angle. I think we should.
What's this? A tour of your house or something? Is it? Go on, show us around. Is this going to be Mike Graham shows kind of through the keyhole equivalent?
Oh, look at that. Do you like the cushions?
Yeah.
Should we try and actually talk?
You're our own version of Kirsty Allsop, aren't you? Did you make them yourself?
No.
Right, so let's talk about the issues, the politics, the topics of the day, Emma. Obviously, we normally talk about the papers, but what isn't in the papers for some reason is yet another catastrophic, disastrous, and I think highly amusing display and performance from David Lammy on the Sunday shows yesterday. So he was on with, I think, actually Trevor Phillips first of all, and then with Laura Kunsberg. We've got a clip of it which I'll play in a second, but let me just kind of paraphrase the calamity that is Lammy and tell you basically how he conducted himself. Is I think, tell me if you agree with me here, Emma, and everybody else, the thickest politician in Westminster, David Lammy. I mean, look, I don't think there are two brain cells in his head. This is effectively what he said when he was asked by Laura Kunsberg if there's two-tier policing in Britain. He said, no, absolutely not. There's no two-tier policing, no two-tier justice. When he was then pressed in terms of kind of equality and what equality means, and whether it meant what it does mean, which is to treat everybody exactly the same, he then says, well, no, equality doesn't mean treating everybody the same. So hang on a sec. Let me just try and get my head around this. So you don't believe that there's two-tier policing. You don't believe that there's a different way of dealing with people depending on their skin colour. But you do think that equality, even though the clue is in the name, right? Because the word equal is in the word equality. You don't think that equality necessarily means treating everybody the same based on their skin colour. He went off actually to have a little rant, Emma, I don't know if you saw it, about how it was very unfair that there were proportionally more black and Asian people in prison. What did you make of it? Did you watch his pathetic performance yesterday?
I did. Well, first of all, I saw him getting pretty much roasted by Trevor Phillips, which was a proper interview. Then, of course, he got the much softer ride from Laura Kunsberg. And the funny thing was she brought up kind of word salad stuff. And he was like, oh, well, it's not a word salad. She showed him the guidance, which basically said everybody should be equal, but people actually shouldn't be equal. There are circumstances in which people shouldn't be equal. And then it was the classic word salad, Russell. It was the classic word salad. And he basically said nothing. He contradicted himself, as you point out. but he literally didn't know what he was talking about. He said, oh, well, there are some circumstances, but that's the point. There are not some circumstances in which things should be different. It should be policing without fear or favour. That is what has gone wrong. That is what we are also upset. We're upset about Henry Novak, but we are angry, and we are not politicising this. We are not weaponising this. We are trying to talk through how we got to this situation where someone, and I don't care about his skin colour, and I'm sorry to get angry so early in the morning again, but I think we all feel this. It's not about skin colour. It's about the fact.
Let's just play the clip so that everyone can get the context of this. For those that weren't glued to the BBC yesterday, who can blame you? This is the clip. This is David Lammy making a tit of himself with Laura Kuenssberg yesterday.
That we've seen proof of what they call two-tier policing. And I want to show everyone the guidance that they've talked about to kind of prove that point that you've already referred to. This is a police chief's guidance. It says, our commitment to racial equity means producing equality of policing outcomes for people from different ethnic groups. Now, that's a bit of a word salad, but this is the really key phrase. It does not mean treating everyone the same or being colourblind. Now, that sounds like it goes absolutely against the principle that you've said a couple of times this morning already, that we are all equal before the law.
Yeah, I'm really clear. We're all equal before the law.
So is that wrong, then, that guidance?
The complexity is equality does not always necessarily mean the same. And that's why I use the example of someone who's Jewish and what they eat. Or, for example, in the criminal justice, the most overrepresented group in the criminal justice system are Gypsy, Roma, Traveller. Now,
but is that appropriate? This is the question. One of your colleagues, Sarah Jones, the policing minister, says the language in that is wrong. It gives the wrong impression.
You said it's a bit of a word salad. It needs review, because in the end, officers have got to know, they've got to understand it, they've got to know what the primary goal is, and in the end, what the public want to see, whatever their colour, in reaction to Henry Novak, is good policing. And the questions are, did we see good policing? But as Kay has said, this is a complex unfolding situation. Let those who are charged to investigate properly investigate it, but understand that context can be different for different groups.
But I'm asking you really about the wider principles that this has raised here. Do you think that we do now have a situation, looking at guidance like that, where what your critics call two-tier policing is now sometimes something that happens?
No, I don't recognise two-tier policing across our country.
It's all over the place, isn't it? Context can be different for different groups, Emma. That sounds a bit like positive discrimination to me, which, guess what, is discrimination. What he's advocating is anti-white discrimination, isn't it?
It literally is. This is what we're talking about when we talk about anti-white racism or reverse racism. And when we get to a situation where you have someone who is injured, irrelevant of their skin colour, regardless of their skin colour, someone who is who is dying, who is not believed because of their skin. I mean, this is so wrong that this is, David Lammy it's really hard to say. He's a stupid, thick man. He's not an intelligent man. It's very hard.
Do you think, Emma, do you think he is the ultimate DEI hire?
I'm not going to say that because you know how that sounds. But I mean, there you go.
But I'm asking the question, is he? I mean, he's been promoted well above his ability, isn't he?
I think he's way, way, way out of his pay grade. Absolutely. And I think there's several of them actually in the front bench in the Labour government who are way, way out of their depth.
Yeah.
And this is what we get to.
The front bench has never had a proper job. We'll talk about this a bit later on, actually, because now the government want to invest our money, your money, taxpayer money, in start-up businesses, and that's going to be led by Peter Kyle, who has only ever worked for charities and for the Labour Party. Dragon's Den, this is not, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be an absolute unmitigated disaster. To your point, the whole Labour front bench have got no life experience whatsoever. I guess you could say that of most politicians, couldn't you? So David Lammy, yet again, not really covering himself in glory. Let's talk about somebody else that I don't think is covering himself in glory at the moment. That's Andy Burnham. Who's going to tread on the people of Makerfield in order to fulfil his political career. Is that how you see it too? Absolutely. He's literally using them. I mean, you know, when someone sort of stands on someone's head
to clamber over the crowd. What is it? Crowd surfing, that kind of thing. That is literally what he's doing. And if the people
Emma,
of
that should be a
Makerfield
cartoon. That should be a Telegraph cartoon. The heads of the people of Makerfield that Andy Burnham in his big fat boots, he's literally treading on as he kind of tries to climb to the peak of politics, the Everest of Andy Burnham, which is for him to be Prime Minister. And doesn't give a toss, does he?
Does not. Do you think he's going to spend more than another 10 minutes in Makerfield once he gets elected, if he gets elected? Do you think that he really, this man is not even an MP. Is this the best they can do in order to, can we just go back, because we are meant to be doing the papers, can we just reflect on that Sunday Telegraph headline, or maybe it was Saturday night, I can't remember, it was Saturday night or Sunday night, saying Labour may need the IMF to rescue the economy. Russell, we had the former IMF chief executive saying that the UK is in real trouble. We are in more trouble than the US because we have no growth story. Basically, we are lurching towards a debt crisis. And this is what Labour have done in the last 23 months. This country is a basket case, and that is on Starmer or, 2.0, Burnham version, Streeting, Miliband, whoever it is, Rachel Reeves, another one who's been promoted way beyond her accounts department.
Yeah.
I mean, we are lurching towards a debt crisis.
Emma, it's worse than that. Here's a stat for you that I read this morning. Our debt, in terms of how fast it is increasing as a country, in terms of our national debt, is increasing faster than every other country in the world apart from Botswana.
It's embarrassing.
Stunned silence. So seriously. And the Labour front bench have the audacity to stand there and say, no, everything's fine. We're growing with the fastest growing economy in the G7. Yeah, but that's because everybody's in the toilet, frankly. So we're just, kind of the best of a bad bunch, depending on which piece of data you decide to look at. But let's look at, I don't know, some other rather compelling pieces of kind of economic data like inflation, which is now twice what it was when the Labour Party took over from the Conservatives. Let's look at unemployment. I think about 300,000 people have lost their jobs since Labour took control. It's not exactly a slate, an achievement to be proud of, is it, despite the fact that we get gaslit on a daily basis by Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves?
That's the thing. I'm glad you used the word, because it's at this stage, it's gaslighting, telling us, okay, we are living our lives. All of us who are, not funded by the taxpayer, all of us who are not driven in private cars around town and have our second homes and all our expenses and utility bills covered by the taxpayer. Those of us who are actually living normal lives, working, paying our bills, going to the shops, buying a pint of milk or a loaf of bread, we can see our local high streets with the shops closing down. And I'm in central London and I see it, so it is a lot worse around the country. We can see the prices.
I know you're very, very keen to get back to the papers, because I know you've probably prepped all night for this auspicious occasion, doing the papers with me for 30 minutes. But we need to go back just very, very quickly to the David Lammy thing. For your delectation, we have devised a poll, which we're going to put up on the screen now, which is who is the thickest? Let's see if we can get that up. There you go. Who is the thickest? Is it David Lammy? Is it Diane Abbott? Is it Benny from Crossroads? Or is it two short planks? I can't believe that two short planks are only on 2%. But David Lammy, so far, with 510 votes already, is romping away at 94% then. Let's see what that looks like at the end of the show. A resounding victory for David Lammy there.
The first time he's ever been top of his class, I would say. I mean, 94%. He is streets ahead.
He is. Right, let's talk about the papers then. What do you want to talk about first? Go on, you choose. Do you want to talk about Katie Price? I mean, really, really important news. I mean,
what is going on with that?
We've got Iran bombing Israel, and we've got, Starmer banning so-called harmful social media. We'll get to that in a second. Are you particularly taken by the story that is the woes of Katie Price and her very odd husband, by the looks of it?
Yeah, and let's just clarify. It's not Lee Anderson, the husband, and it's not Lee Nalalangam, who I adore and who I think is in the studio now.
He's here.
It's Lee. That's what I mean.
Here.
It's not. He's not locked up in a prison in Dubai, and he's not married to Katie Price. Hi, Lee, and a great surname. And it's not Lee Anderson.
Do you think his intention, as in being locked away in Dubai, was just to get himself arrested to get away from Katie Price for as long as he possibly could?
There is that. Her 5 ex-husbands do extreme things, don't they?
Is it 5?
I think it's 4 or 5. Okay, there is so much one could say about Katie Price, and it's a very, very sad story. It's actually incredibly tragic. If we stop laughing at her and you look, and I've written extensively, I've written 10 books about this stuff, about, body dysmorphia and how ill that woman is. We can laugh at her. We can laugh at the ridiculous cosmetic surgery and the inflated breasts and the body that is literally about to fall apart. But I will tell you something, and then, covered in tattoos and the car crash of a personal life and four children by 4 different men and all of that. But I can tell you something. She will very soon be the Amy Winehouse of these years, this decade. And we'll all say, someone should have stepped in to help her. She's in a really, really bad way.
Emma, you think
she's
she
selling
should be
her
on,
life
you should,
to
you
the
think
papers.
she should, you
look
think she
how
should
sick
be on,
she is, Russell. Look how ill she is.
Yeah, no, I get that. You think she should be on suicide watch?
I think she needs help. I think every single cosmetic surgeon who operates on that woman with a most severe form of body dysmorphia, anybody who does any more surgery, who puts a knife into that woman anymore, should be prosecuted. It's appalling medical negligence to keep on giving her implants and butt lift and breast enlargements. Look how sick she is. She's got rampaging anorexia. She's
you think that they should
unwell.
have a duty of care to her rather than to their bank accounts?
Yes.
Wow.
She'll die. Her body can't take any more. And I think I'm one of the only people who will say that she will be the next Amy Winehouse, and everybody will clutch their pearls, Russell, and say, oh, how sad, we should have done something. Instead of which, they buy her stories.
Well, let's see what the Mike Graham audience thinks of that in terms of whether she should continue being a parody figure, which of course she is, or whether we should have more sympathy for her. And to your point, that the surgeons actually somehow are culpable in terms of them contributing to her mental illness. Right, let's move on. Starmer's ban on harmful social media. Now, I think, Emma, this is absolutely abhorrent. We've got a government here that thinks that they should be the parent of our children in Britain. A government that thinks that they should be the ones cleaning our children's teeth, providing them breakfast. Whatever next. The government telling us as parents when to send our kids to bed, what clothes they should wear. Seriously, this is big state stuff kind of laid bare. I think, as a father of 4 and 3 teenage daughters that have a propensity for social media, as you can imagine, I think this is up to the parents, don't you? How on earth can it be up to elected politicians, to the state, a government? How on earth can it be up to them to tell parents whether their kids should be allowed on social media or not?
Interesting, and I'm glad that we can vehemently disagree on this one. I think this is absolute flip-flopping, weak, spineless stuff from Starmer. This is all about his legacy. He's apparently unbelievable line in the Times this morning. Keir has entered his legacy era. The conversations now are all what is announceable in time before Makerfield. So this social media, other things he's going to announce in the next few weeks, just before the by-election, is all about his legacy. It was all about what will he be remembered for. Give me a break. To the point about social media, I think this is really, really weak and vacillating. It's a classic. He's trying to appease a few Labour MPs. What we need, and what I have campaigned for, Russell, for 5 years, and everybody laughed at me, is we need a ban on smartphones for under 16s. I have a 5-year-old. I know you have 4, so you win. Don't know how you cope with 4
Top Trump
children.
Kids.
I have 1, and it's almost killed me. The whole thing is exhausting. I have a 5-year-old, and he does not have screens. We live in a television-free, screen-free, tech-free, as much as possible household.
Yeah, but Emma, that's your choice, right? That's your choice. Rather than the government telling you what you can or can't do with regard to screens for your kids. Why has it got anything to do with the government?
Yeah, but this announcement from Starmer, if it happens, because Liz Kendall also mentioned it a few weeks ago, it's not going to happen. Anyway, they don't even know what they're doing. They're banning on harmful social media for children. How will this actually work, by the way? Has he spoken to the tech giants? No, he hasn't. He said, the addictive features like infinite scrolling and autoplay. Did you know the children are really, really clever? Did you know there are so many ways to circumvent this? Did you know he hasn't even decided what's harmful and what's not? This is not going to work. For me, Russell, and this is my point, and I agree with you, I don't really want the state telling us what to do and how to raise our children. I don't. But we are at such a point now where I think that it's actually child abuse, seeing 2-year-olds addicted to screens. For me, it's not even the porn and the violence and all of the nastiness on social media. It is what children are not doing when they are addicted to phones. It is the things they're missing out on. It is the playground, the friends they should be making, the fresh air. We have an epidemic of myopia. That is early childhood blindness because children are not outdoors. They're not being exposed to the range of daylight, the different prisms of daylight that they need to develop their eyes and their irises and their cornea.
I get all that, but I think it's a
really
very, very slippery slope indeed when we allow the government to start telling us what we as parents should do or not do with our kids. So I hear all the health stuff, I get all that, and I subscribe to the fact that, a lot of social media is bad. I totally get that. But whatever next when the government start telling us what we can or can't do. Nikki Forrest 59 says just a phone, not a smartphone for kids under 16. Well, okay, yeah, if you're worried about kids' safety, but then there's also the argument that most of us went to and from school for many, many years on bikes, walking on buses without having a phone.
We got to and from school. We got to and from school without having a phone. I hear this all the time from friends of mine that have teenage children. I need to know where they are. I say, okay, we'll get them a dumb phone. But why do you even need that? Children talk to other children. They get on the bus. They communicate. The school calls you. If they don't arrive, the school will call you. It's not more dangerous than it was.
Did you see the comment just there that someone has commented that this is not about phones, this is about control? This is about the government kind of knowing what our kids are doing, where they are, and what they're reading, almost as a kind of a digital censorship. That was malfunction 8165. Where do they get these handles from? And you could subscribe to that view, couldn't you? That this is very much about command and control, which is a kind of hallmark of the left, isn't it, really?
Yeah, exactly. They want digital ID on us, all of this. So I would very, very much agree with that. But look, I mean, unfortunately, the government rule on what age people should be allowed to smoke and drink and all of that. You wouldn't let your children, you wouldn't let them become addicted to drugs and all of that. You would actually intervene. And I think the addiction to smartphones is at that level.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to matters of defence. So not defending our kids, but defending the country. Front page of the Daily Mail here, Emma, which you may or may not have seen. Spend now on defence or we will pay a cost in blood. Sounds a bit bloody dramatic, doesn't it? This is former NATO Chief General Sir Richard Shirreff said that the country could suffer catastrophic costs unless the government moves to shore up our defences immediately. Well, it's been well written, isn't it, over the last weeks and months. So, we don't spend enough on defence. We're barely at 2.5% of GDP. The Labour government keeps pretending that it's going to get to 3% of GDP. What does that really mean in reality? I don't think the average man or woman in the street really knows what that means at all. What we do know, though, is that we've hardly got any defences left. We've hardly got an air force, we've hardly got an army, and it seems most of our destroyers, our aircraft carrier, not plural, carrier, and our nuclear submarines are all in the workshop.
Yeah. Look at the farce of Iran. The reason that we couldn't really intervene, even if Starmer had wanted to, was that literally most of our frigates couldn't get out of Portsmouth. They don't operate in warmer waters. They're in dry dock. They're simply not fit for purpose. They haven't been stocked. Our defences in this country, and this is long term. This is not just on the Labour government, is it? This is long term. There is an absolute calamity. I mean, things don't just happen like that. They take decades to build, to invest in. And as you say, chiefs and former defence chiefs and former chiefs of staff have been warning about this for weeks, months, years, actually. And it's a total joke. And the thing is, Russell, it's not sexy. It's not a sell. You can't say we're going to build a local hospital in your area, which sounds good, which sounds appealing to voters. If you say we're going to take billions of your taxpayers' money and spend it on defence, voters don't go for that. So over successive governments, politicians have just been really, really weak on this. Plus, our procurement is woeful, isn't it? We waste billions and billions on hopeless procurement for stuff that isn't fit for purpose when it's finally built, or isn't even, the funding isn't there. So now we have Reeves and Starmer desperately scrabbling around down the back of the sofa, trying to cut from, guess what? Education, the NHS, but they won't touch the welfare bill. I mean, it's a joke.
Funny enough, there is, in the papers this morning, there is a suggestion that actually the thing that will be cut, and Ed Miliband, who I know is a big fan of this show, I'm sure he's watching, will not like this very much, but it's said that actually some of the money that's going to go towards actually defending our shores from multiple international threats, whether it be Russia, China, Iran, you name it, is the money's going to come from net zero being cut. I mean, fantastic if that is true, but I suspect it's not.
Exactly. And also, why are we spending all this money on net zero? I'm not economically illiterate.
Don't
like
get me started on net zero. Honestly, what the most pointless and utterly futile, gaslighting, pathetic endeavour ever. Anyone that thinks that this tiny little island of ours that contributes 1% to global emissions, a planet that has only 0.04% of it as carbon versus other elements. If anyone thinks that us driving around in electric cars, working from home and not eating meat anymore is going to make any difference to the temperature of the planet on the basis that China, India and the United States are chugging out carbon emissions from their coal and gas-fired power stations left, right and centre. I mean, the rest of the world, right, must be, I mean, they're laughing at us already because we've got a hapless Prime Minister and a joke of a Deputy Prime Minister that gaslights himself that two-tier policing is not a thing, and then 30 seconds later admits that, well, actually, when it comes to equality, that doesn't necessarily mean that, we have to treat people the same. I mean, we are a laughingstock on the world stage, but particularly when it comes to net zero, the world really is laughing at us that we're making all of this effort, this futile, pointless endeavour, and it will make literally zero, talking of net zero, difference whatsoever to the outcome of the planet. But it's going to cost us, not billions, but apparently, Emma, net zero is going to cost us trillions of pounds if Ed Miliband gets his way.
It is absolutely scandalous. It is, as you say, it's pointless. It makes us even more of a laughingstock. You know, we desperately need to start drilling again. And look, I speak as a cyclist. I speak as someone who doesn't drive. I'm ultra green, but this net zero nonsense is absolute. Well, I don't want to swear on the show. So
go on, you can. No, there's no Ofcom. There's no Ofcom. Depends what you're going to say. Don't say the C word. But no, if you're going to say something mildly swearing, fill your boots. I've never heard you swear, Emma. I've never heard you swear.
I'm well trained by the Ofcom Stasi. I don't dare. Even in a locked room, I don't dare swear anymore. No, I mean it is such a joke, and it's not that one objects at all to living cleaner and to cleaning up the environment and to all of that. And actually, I'm really behind using renewables when we can and if we can as part of the mix. And I think most of us are. But it's this utterly wrong-headed craziness. I mean, I was chatting to an Uber driver yesterday. He said to me, we've all been forced to buy these electric cars. We can't even get them serviced because the garages. He said, to refill my car, to charge up my electric car overnight, cost me £70 to even get out on the road. I mean, drivers out there are getting rid of perfectly decent functioning cars that are a few years old. They're replacing them with electric cars, which may well also be destroying our roads. What about the lithium batteries? What about where are the charging points? There are so many problems with this stuff that I think we're in terms of the future, unless we get control, we're in real trouble.
Do you remember when we were sold the concept of electric cars, that it was going to save us money, not just in terms of electricity versus petrol or diesel, but the fact that we wouldn't have to pay congestion charge, we wouldn't have to pay the ULEZ, we wouldn't have to pay road tax. I've got to admit something, by the way, and I might get thrown out of the studio now. I actually, as one of my many cars, I do own a few, I do actually own an electric car. I'm sorry. And so
does Pooch.
But here's the thing.
Yeah,
he's got the most boring car in existence. He's got a Tesla, which, as I said on Mike's show, this show the other day, the danger with Teslas is that they're so benign that you drive them, you fall asleep and you crash. Not a good look. No, but here's the thing, right? So I now, in my Renault Alpine Electric, my little daily, I was looking forward to not paying congestion charge. Well, now Sadiq Khan has increased congestion charge so that actually electric cars now pay a version of the congestion charge if you come into London, and that will no doubt, if Labour get their way, extend to other cities in the UK too. But also road tax. I've just got my road tax reminder. It's 200 quid. So what's the incentive now for me to buy one of these hairdryers, effectively on wheels, to save the planet, when actually I'm being taxed in return for trying to do the so-called right thing from a carbon emissions and a net zero perspective? It's bullshit.
It really is. And so many people, so many older people who've got decent cars, just old bangers, they've been driving around. What is the cost there of forcing them, like my elderly mum, forcing her to get rid of her old car that was working fine? Maybe it wasn't the greenest thing on the planet, but it certainly wasn't like some of the vans I see going through central London, pouring out black smoke. And no one stops them. No one challenges them. Sadiq Khan doesn't care about them.
No, what Sadiq Khan cares about is money. Here's another stat for you. The money that Sadiq Khan and his mayoralty earn from congestion charge, from ULEZ and from speeding tickets, if you dare to do 22 miles an hour in a 20 mile an hour zone, which most of London is now, the consequence in terms of the amount of money that Sadiq Khan earns from the poor beleaguered visitor to London is £1 billion a year. £1 billion a year is what Sadiq Khan takes off the public. It's a tax. He realised that he couldn't increase council tax any more than the maximum. I think, was it last year or the year before, he increased council tax on Londoners by about 10%. And as a consequence, he's tried to find other things, other ways of taxing people. And he's taking £1 billion a year off Londoners and visitors to London just for pure financial purposes. He's almost as bad as David LAMMY. Have you seen Sadiq Khan's new haircut, by the way?
Again, we can't criticise him. He went on Hajj to Mecca and he came back with a shaved head. I mean, I have a simple question for you, Russell.
Is it just because he's losing his hair? It's got nothing to do with his religion, is it? It's just because he's losing his hair. But he looks a bit weird. Maybe I'll get used to it.
He looked like a Hindu monk. Can I ask a question? Who paid for the security? Because we know this man, the mayor of London, who has a massive, his ego is in inverse proportion to his size. He must have the biggest ego on the planet.
Yes.
And drives around in armoured vehicles. Mm-hmm. He goes to my son's school, which makes me deeply, deeply unhappy. He puts rainbow posters outside the school, which I'm going to cut down at one morning.
Oh, can you do it on video and show us? Can you come back on and show us the video of you taking down those posters?
He says, "You are all loved," with rainbow flags all over my son's school.
Bless.
Anyway, who paid? Because he travels around in an armoured fleet of jeeps, like bulletproof jeeps.
Range Rovers.
Who paid for his security to go to Mecca?
I don't know, but I know we pay for his security in London. I mean, when he takes his dogs out for a walk, he takes 2 or 3 bloody Range Rovers that are bulletproof, costing about £300,000 or £400,000 each, plus a load of special branch officers just to walk Fido or whatever it is on Hampstead Heath.
There you go.
Yeah, therein lies the thing.
But cleaning up the planet with all his.
It's been a delight. I haven't even got to Churchill being taken off of banknotes or Lewis Hamilton saying that there shouldn't be billionaires in the world, even though he's half a billionaire himself. We didn't even get to those 2 things.
No. I mean, don't get me started on Lewis Hamilton. Did you see his outfit yesterday at the Monaco Grand Prix? Absolutely. Ludicrous.
I saw a little ensemble of insecure fashion items. Wasn't he wearing like a pink cloak?
Robes, basically.
A pink cloak. Yeah, he looked like a gay Dracula.
He really, really did. And now he's dating, I think, a Nicole Scherzinger. No, Kim Kardashian.
But that's the thing, right? Sorry, before we get on to the next guest, we're going to overrun here, guys. Sorry. He sat down. I don't know if there's a clip. I think there is. Can we just show this, please? Clip 7. This is Lewis Hamilton. Right, before you go, Emma, you got a comment on this. On how bad wealth is. This is a man that's worth $500 million.
One of the things that I struggle with every day is, and it's just how life is, and it's been the way for thousands of years, that there is such a disparity between wealthy and the poor. And you still, when you drive around LA, there's still so many people living on the streets. You shouldn't be able to have billions, right? I think there should be a limit to how much you can have, because there's enough to go around to everyone. So somehow creating a law that creates more equality, and equal access for everyone. I don't know how that you would implement that law.
That's all good.
But geez, man, I've met kids that are starving.
Yeah, same.
And you think, oh God, how are we are so lucky, so many of us. And knowing that and not taking advantage of your everyday is so important.
Hey Lewis, I love you as an F1 driver. You are a legend. You're probably the best driver that the Formula One circus has ever seen. But politically, you're a real dick. The fact that you're saying that there shouldn't be billionaires when you're half a billionaire yourself, and your girlfriend, Kim Kardashian, is literally a billionaire, and you're also a man that has decided to domicile himself in Monaco. Why? Because there's no tax. Why don't you use some of the tax that you've saved over the last 20 years and give it to the so-called poor and needy people on the streets that you go past in your Maybach in LA? Seriously, Emma? Is she gone? She's still there.
I am.
Emma, you're speechless, aren't you? You're speechless. I can't believe what I was watching there. I saw this yesterday on social media. Amazing, amazing stuff. Parody.
Looking like an absolute idiot in his bucket hat. There he is, telling us that it's really, really unfair that there are children on the streets. And he doesn't know how to fix it, but here's an idea, Lewis. Give it away. You've got all that money. You've got millions and millions. Give it away. Literally, you pick it up and you give it back. You give it to people. You go
collection to me for not much money. Emma, I've got to kick you out, I'm afraid, because I've got another very, very worthy guest who we're now overrunning by 5 minutes with. Emma, it's been a delight and a pleasure. I'm sure I'll see you properly soon. I guess we'll see you next Monday when Mike Graham himself is back, unless he decides to stay on the Chagos. I guess he's holidaying right now on a very, very well-deserved break. I'm being told we've got to go to Edward Hughes with the news.
Morning, I'm Edward Hughes. Instead of sorting knife crime or whatever, we're all screaming about migration while J.D. Vance chimes in from across the pond and Elon Musk stirs the pot online. Keir Starmer's team is on damage control, calling it all nonsense. Classic. Royal Mail finally delivers a new parent magazine to a dad, 19 years late. Peak post office efficiency. M&S is heroically training 1,000 young people, not in jobs or education, because nothing says, "We've got this," like a retailer stepping in where the system failed. A man arrested 22 years after another teen killing. Justice. Fashionably late as ever. And somewhere in all this, royals had a wedding, and the economy's wobbling thanks to distant wars. God save the Queen, or whoever's in charge. Brilliant. Laters, tigers.
He's brilliant, isn't he? What a fantastic, I was going to say invention, of course he's real, what am I talking about? Apparently got some super chats, haven't we, Elena? I read them out, apparently. There you go, look, super chat from Sorrel 1977, giving your date of birth away there. Very excited for your shows this week. I think I speak for everyone here that we just don't get enough intake of common sense news. Roll on UK Live, hear, hear. Have a great week, Russell and crew. Love you all. Thank you very much. And another one, wow. Looking the part, Russell, you'll be a great stand-in for Mike. Well, yeah, look, we're 37 minutes in and I haven't been fired by Pooch yet, so so far so good. Is there another one? Yes, there is. Politico 5. It's not about net zero. It's about making us poor. I mean, is it? I'm not sure they intend to make us poor. I think there's a big dollop of command and control going on when it comes to net zero. And I do think it's kind of the politics of the sixth form. I think it's just a mad ideology that the left seem to be fixated on. It's kind of, it's the new religion, isn't it? Sorry, can you just go back? Did someone just say there, Elena? Russell rules. Can we have a bit more ego stroking, please? Stroking. Ego stroking. Paul Thurston, 2883. That's a snappy little handle there, Paul. Russell rules. Well, thank you. Not quite sure what I rule. And Franceline Taylor, 1158. You're an excellent replacement, Russell. Well, thank you. Keep the compliments coming. My ego, of course, isn't quite fulfilled enough yet, but hopefully by the time we get to 10 o'clock this morning, yes, lots more of your comments will... Her name? Nalalingam. I did it. What do you want to talk about? Because you're a reform bod, aren't you?
I am. Well, I have to be a reform bod, yes.
Yep.
I've been known to be. I guess the headlines are, I dropped some new stats yesterday.
Did you?
There were 368,000 crimes in London in the last 151 days.
Why did you choose 151 days? Is that
from the first 5 months of the year?
Right, okay.
So first 5 months of the year.
And how do they break down? I mean, in terms of serious stuff, because of course Sadiq Khan assures us that everything's fine.
Everything is fine. We're
London is the
safer than ever.
safest city. It's good. I mean, you can walk around. I don't know, Lewisham, Stockwell, Golders Green, wherever. 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, holding your phone out with your wallet in the other hand. All good. Nothing's going to happen to you.
Well, absolutely. But then I grew up in Newham, so for me, I feel safe in those places. But no, he loves to tell us we are safer than ever.
Yep.
So I've looked at the stats, and safer than ever means that in the last 12 months, murder is up, rape is up, sexual offences are up, violence against the person is up, drug crime is up, possession of weapons is up, all in the last 12 months. But on the plus side, total crime has come down because there's less bike theft.
Wow. So is that the stat that Sadiq Khan and his cronies are using?
Pretty much.
To try and gaslight us that actually everything's fine. They take a big dollop of kind of, I don't know, white-collar crime going down and other more kind of benign elements of crime, and they use that in the stats to kid us that everything's fine.
That's pretty much what they do.
So is Sadiq Khan lying to us?
He is. I believe the word is misinformation is the one they like.
I think we just call it lying, don't we? I think it's just lying. How does the man get elected so frequently? I think he's been elected 3 times. It looks like he is going to stand again. Obviously, the Reform candidate is Layla Cunningham. We don't know who the Conservative will be yet, or Green. I think the Greens will give him a bit of a run for his money, no doubt. How does the man keep getting elected?
Voter apathy, the short answer. I continually go on about this. The parties on the right still don't understand London. So they continue to campaign based on an outsider's view of London. And so most Londoners like me, who are, I'm very reform friendly, as you know, what are the policies for us? Sitting there and just criticising and going on about it.
So do you think reform need to work harder?
They need to work harder.
Cut through in messaging terms.
Cut through in messaging. There's a nuance in London.
Yeah.
Right. Most people look at it as inner London versus outer London.
And because it's a boiling pot of different nationalities.
And not just different nationalities. I mean, you could just take outer London. You've got Croydon and Richmond.
Yeah.
But you can't tag both of those as outer London. They're very, very different. So is Havering, so is Barnet and so on.
So what should Reform's message be in London?
The Reform's message is a borough by borough message. 32 boroughs. Why are we not...
What, you mean localise it that much?
Localise it that much because it is essentially 32 different
Jamie
cities.
McIver's going to be ringing you, who's the head of local government, by the way, for Reform in a minute, saying, what did you just say?
Yes.
What did you just say that we should be doing?
Absolutely. I was on with Mike a few weeks ago and we were talking about why the Greens didn't do that well in London. And I was like, well, the Greens weren't going to do that well in London because if you go to Tower Hamlets or Newham, where they were expected to do well, none of the ethnic minorities want anything to do with all of the green woke stuff. But they did well in Hackney because it's all middle-class lefty,
But Reform is now getting cut through, significant cut through, with elements of society and demographics that you wouldn't normally associate with a centre-right party. So many ethnic minorities, those that are perhaps were first-generation migrants to this country maybe 20 or 30 years ago that had to jump through hoops to get here, whereas, of course, now you can just rock up on a boat and get a nice blanket and an iPhone and a hotel for, a few weeks and, get off loads of crimes, because that's kind of roughly what happens. So I think there is a significant outcry from, let's say, original first-generation migrants that they're not happy that the rules have changed and that they had to work and justify being here. Now you don't. But also the really interesting thing, I think, is that Reform now seems to have captured the attention of union members.
Yes.
And on that note, we should talk about Andy Burnham up in Makerfield.
Yes.
And the Fire Brigade Union. Do you know about this, guys? Do you know about this?
I saw this.
So this is, right, so bearing in mind that as Manchester Mayor, Andy Burnham is the Fire Commissioner, right? So he's the Fire Commissioner. So he effectively runs and rules over the fire service in Manchester. The FBU and the fire authority effectively has just written to members to say that there are a number of Fire Brigade Union members that are going to and have stood as Reform candidates in the last election, so the May the 7th local elections. And a letter went out to the membership to ask if they were okay with that, if they were traumatised by that, and to say effectively that it would maybe cause anxiety amongst the fire service membership, specifically not because those individuals had decided to kind of politicise themselves by standing as candidates, but specifically because they decided to stand as reform candidates. I don't think there's any evidence that when someone in the same service decides to stand as a Labour candidate or a Green candidate or a Conservative candidate, that a letter goes out warning the membership that they might feel some kind of concern or anxiety. Has Andy Burnham overstepped here?
Oh, he's overstepped massively. I mean, I had two thoughts when I saw this story. The first was, so apparently they can run into a burning building, but someone standing for a different political party is going to cause them anxiety. Secondly, well, it's just what they accuse everyone of, isn't it? It's very fascist type behaviour. Well, you can only campaign for who We say you can.
Well, it's big
And if
state
you have a
censorship.
different- It's big state
It is
censorship.
fascism. It is fascism.
Right? It is.
Talking of Andy Burnham, he was confronted this weekend in Makerfield. I don't know if you've been up there, but he's obviously out campaigning every day.
We met in Makerfield.
Sorry?
We met in Makerfield.
We did. Yeah, I was up there too. I'm going up there. It's all part of my quest to save the country. Yeah, kind of one area at a time. Let's play this. This is Andy Burnham. This is our clip number 3, which won't mean anything to you, but does to Elena. Andy Burnham being confronted in Makerfield on the subject of rape gangs and the fact that he did precisely sod all about the rape gangs for many, many years when he was an MP and then latterly when he became Mayor of Manchester. Watch this.
Andy, can I ask you why you didn't support the rape gang inquiry?
I ordered one, so...
No, you didn't, because
yes,
you covered it up and you didn't support it.
Take a look at the facts before you...
No, I do know the facts, and the Crib do know the facts, and neither did the Labour government either.
I ordered one in 2017.
So why hasn't it happened then?
Well, it has. Go and read
It hasn't happened at all, you covered it up.
Online. No, I didn't.
You absolutely did.
Go and read the reports online.
Well, I mean,
one into
it's
Manchester, one into Oldham, one into Rochdale.
Let's just presume that you're telling the truth that you didn't. So then why the prosecution's not being done from that then? I do know the facts, and you're lying to people. No, I don't need to stand in front of me, thank you. So what's up, you're trying to protect your candidate because you know that I'm telling the truth? That's why you're trying to stand in front of me. Yeah, but I was just speaking to him. Do you have a problem speaking to somebody? Do you have a problem speaking to somebody? Team around, yeah? We're not even being aggressive, but look, you want to walk away. We clearly know that what you've done. You protect them, protect the Muslim bloc vote. But let your little gang hang around, yeah? I can come and catch up with you if you like, but I wouldn't want you to be too scared. You know, like how those...
Well, that was an awkward few minutes for Andy Burnham, wasn't it? Being confronted on the street there by someone very, very concerned about Andy Burnham's distinct lack of action when it came to investigations into the grooming gangs, the rape gangs, let's call them what they are, rape gangs. He says, of course, in that clip that he did order investigations into the rape gangs. Actually, what he did was, rather than it being a proper inquiry that would compel people to have to give evidence, what he actually instigated was a very, very kind of light touch and lily-livered excuse of a couple of local inquiries that just looked into the rape of young white girls rather than it actually being a proper inquiry. So I think what we see there, from my point of view, and no doubt from Lee's as well, is an Andy Burnham that is disingenuous, to say the least. He's a shapeshifter. This is also the man that wants us to be slap bang in the middle of the EU again in terms of rejoining, but in Makerfield, which I think, Lee, is about 65% leave as a voter base, something like that. I mean, oops springs to mind when to campaign to be the MP for that area. When actually you don't want us to be outside of the EU, you want us to be inside the EU. You know, of course, his stance on open door immigration, his stance on many, many things has changed a lot over the last 3 or 4 weeks on the basis that he's facing a different audience. He's everything that I detest and hate about politicians that just say what they want to say to get to get themselves elected, and then of course do completely the opposite once elected. Who else is a bit like that? Oh, let me think. Who's that? Oh yeah, Keir Starmer and the whole of the Labour front bench. Quick comment before you go, Lee.
Quick comment before I go. Yes.
On that in particular?
Absolutely correct. I mean, to say he didn't do enough action on the rape gangs, I mean, the reality is I think he actively tried to block it, isn't it?
Yeah.
In terms of what I've read. So yes, let's get rid of Andy Burnham. Let's get rid of the whole Labour lot and get a reform government.
Who wins on 18th of June in Makerfield?
When I was up there, I saw 2 Labour posters. That was it. I met 2 people the entire day that said Labour.
Yeah.
Everyone else said Rob Kenyon. So long may that be the case.
So the choice is a local guy that wants to represent Makerfield, or a guy that just wants to use Makerfield as a stepping stone to his future political prosperity. Lee, and I'm going to try and say it again, Nalalingham.
Very good.
Wow, I'm fluent. Thank you very much. Until next time. Right, we've got another guest, Malcolm Offord, who is head of reform up in Scotland. Malcolm, welcome.
Hello, can you hear me and see me?
I can, indeed. How are you, sir?
Very well indeed, thank you.
It's a kind of reform fest here this morning, but why not? It is the party of common sense after all. What's happening up there in Scotland? So only, 3 weeks ago, you had elections, 4 weeks ago. You took 17 seats, I think, Malcolm, didn't you?
Yes, we were very pleased with that. We took 17 seats, which made us equal with Labour. who also TMGS. But the SNP returned again with the majority of seats, although not a majority in the House. They got 58, 65 is a number.
Yeah, so you've done well, but what does that look like in terms of having a bit of power and authority up there? Because obviously the SNP haven't got a majority, but they're still the biggest party. So do you have any influence in Scotland?
Well, we are sharing the responsibilities of opposition with Labour, but at the end of the day, we have a parliament which is very much based on a centre-left agenda, very much a tax and spend agenda. So it's going to fall to us to really oppose that, because at the end of the day, Labour share the same agenda.
Yeah, yeah. So given the lack of SNP popularity, and given that I guess their war chest is a little bit barer than perhaps it might otherwise be, because it looks like some are saying 400,000, but many are also saying £600,000 was stolen by Peter Murrell. How's that going to affect their chances of electoral success? Or are they now, Malcolm, just completely irrelevant on the basis that people aren't voting for them and therefore don't really want to see Scottish independence?
Well, they have a strong base, but their vote was down by 10%. So they polled 625,000 votes. In Context Reform polled 385,000 votes. The biggest part of the electorate that voted in Scotland was actually the 2 million Scots who didn't vote. And that's the big issue we've got. You were just talking about in London about voter apathy. We have the same in Scotland. We have people who are just very fed up with the political system. 2 million Scots not voting means that with only a 53% turnout, it's not a mandate for very much at all.
Yeah. What do you think should happen to that £400,000 that was secreted away by Peter Murrell on rather inconspicuous things like camper vans, Mont Blanc pens, Braymont watches, coffee machines, all the stuff that Nicola Sturgeon didn't notice? What do you think should happen about that 400k, Malcolm? I mean, how should the donors at the SNP, bearing in mind this isn't public money, it's not taxpayer money, it's SNP donors' money. I'm reading that actually there doesn't seem to be a mechanism to claw that money back. I mean, I don't know where the goods are. I mean, I guess, look, there should be a big for sale sign on that motorhome, shouldn't there? And those pens should be on eBay. What's your feeling in terms of that money being clawed back by Peter Murrell and indeed his wife, as was Nicola Sturgeon? She's culpable here, isn't she? Mm-hmm.
Well, look, there is, as far as the First Minister is concerned, he's been taking a lot of questions on this, and he's adamant that the matter is closed. He's adamant that the police have done a thorough investigation. He's adamant that the culprit has been caught, which is Peter Murrell. He's adamant that the SNP are the victims here, and he wants the matter to be closed. However, this is very embarrassing. It's put Scotland in the limelight for all the wrong reasons, and it's created quite a lot of hilarity as well as the seriousness of the charges. Now, there is a section of the SNP who are very unhappy with this, and I think you'll find in the next few weeks there'll be some splits there, because their grassroots members are very, very angry about their money having been sort of taken away like that, you know?
Yeah. So do you think the SNP are irrelevant?
The SNP have a strong base, and they are still the main party in Scotland. The issue is that we've got to change that over the next 5 years. And, you know, if you look at the pro-independence parties, the separatist parties, if you go back to the 2014 referendum, 1.6 million Scots voted to leave, okay? And in Holyrood 21, that block was 1.3 million. And in 26, a month ago, in Holyrood, that block is 1 million. So there is a declining number of votes in Scotland for separatist parties. And I think that's the biggest story that people aren't really...
Giant political banquets in France. I don't know if you've seen this on social media over the last 24 hours or so. It's Le Concorde Français, I think, which I'll show you the clip. And actually, I've still got Lee Nallalingam, now that I can say his name over and over again. Nallalingam. There you go, look. Aren't I good?
Brilliant.
Look, I'm good at this now. Because you're both of the centre-right, I want to get your opinion on this. But let's just play this clip.
So this is one of those Canon Francais banquets. As you can see, there are thousands of people here sitting on these long tables on benches, eating good French local food, good French local wine, generally having a good time. The ambiance, I would say, is halfway between a rugby international and one of those feasts at the end of the Asterix books. Now, the organisers say they're simply answering a crying need in the French countryside and provinces for a chance to celebrate tradition, terroir, that means locality, local food, and that's all there is to it. But the problem is that
Looks like they're having a fantastic time there, the French, doesn't it? Thousands of people eating, drinking, singing, celebrating, being patriotic, I guess. Malcolm first, then Lee. Is this something that we should embrace and do in Britain, do you think?
Well, I don't know what the context is for that. I haven't seen that, but they all look to be having a very jolly time. I don't know if there's some subtext that I'm not picking up.
Well, I think they're centre-right members of the public that are there to celebrate French heritage, and they're singing French national songs. Now, here's the context. I'm not trying to catch you guys out here, but of course the left in France have suggested that this is effectively a kind of far-right movement, that this is, the kind of Nazis congregating, almost before battle, getting fed up, as in fed, food-wise, kind of ready for whatever. I mean, which is complete and utter nonsense. So my question to both of you really is, on the basis that this is patriotic and this is kind of celebrating, the kind of, not nationalism, but the nation as such, why shouldn't we do this sort of thing in Britain? And do you think that we would be unfairly criticised if, let's say, some of us on the centre-right, Reform, for instance, if Reform decided to put on these celebrations, these banquets for their supporters and those that perhaps want to display a bit of patriotism and common sense?
Well, they all look pretty friendly to me, but you have to say that we have a tradition of doing that in this country, particularly on royal occasions. We have street parties for royal for royal weddings and jubilees. So there's plenty of tradition of that happening in this country, isn't there?
But do you think we're too scared to, Lee? Because we would be characterised by The Guardian, The Mirror, Newsnight, Question Time and so on as encouraging far-right thuggish behaviour because we're sitting there eating turkey legs and drinking a glass of red wine.
I'll bring a load of ethnic minorities from Tower Hamlets. We'll have a good time. So,
as far as I can see, but Lee, in fairness, that's been the criticism from the left in France, saying, well, there seems to be a kind of, an ultra-Christian type of thing. You don't see any brown faces and so on. Well, I'm sure no one is being prevented from going along to celebrate the wonders of being French. Inverted commas, the wonders of being French. But my question is, my contention is that I don't think we do this in Britain because I think we'd be too worried about the backlash. And that's terrible, Lee.
Well, I think we should do it. I think we should do it. And on the Christian point, I was at church yesterday in Tower Hamlets. Every race, every kind of person you can imagine was there.
Yep.
Let's do it.
Malcolm, are we scared to celebrate our Britishness?
Well, look, we're about to find out. We're going to the World Cup, right? So, and all the nations are going there. All the flags will be out, and there you will see supporters supporting their teams, England, Scotland, etc. And I don't think anyone will be embarrassed in any way about doing that, will they?
Yeah. Well, there's already been a shooting, isn't there, a few yards away from the England team training camp, which I guess is par for the course when it comes to the United States, isn't it?
Look, let's just hope everyone goes out there and has a good time. That's the main thing.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we will. But we're not going to win, are we, everybody? Can I be the first to say it? I'm not a football fan, as most people that know me know. And how did Scotland do, by the way? Are you in the World Cup, Malcolm?
Yeah, we're in the World Cup. First time since '98. It's been a long time coming.
So out in the first round, mate?
Well, there's so many teams in this World Cup. I mean, the trick question was, have Scotland ever been in the last 16? And of course, the answer to that was yes in 1974. When there was only 16 teams.
God, you have to go back a long, long way to see a semblance of Scottish success in football worldwide, don't you?
Well, let's hope for something better this time.
Well, yeah, I'm sure someone will work out the stats saying, well, actually, per capita, proportionally, Scotland are far, far more successful than England. Actually, I've got no faith whatsoever in England doing well. I think we're a rubbish and a lazy team. God, I'm going to get castigated for this. But I say this as an England fan, as in the country. Of course, I'm as patriotic as the next person, but I think when it comes to football, we are decidedly lacklustre. I think it's because we're paying footballers too much money to preen themselves, and the consequence is laziness, apathy and arrogance. You've only got to look at some of those social media clips. You know, when you see footballers going in and out of their football stadiums for a match or training, and you've got these poor little 7 and 8 year old kids standing there with their phones and their autograph books out, and they get resoundingly ignored by those 500 grand a week football players. And I think that's absolutely disgusting.
Well, we don't have that in Scotland. We don't have that amount of money. And interestingly,
well, you never play at high enough level, Malcolm, do you, to get that accolade?
Well, the players are still connected to the fans, put it that way.
I'm going to get so much stick for this, I'm sure. But Lee, football fan?
Football fan, unfortunately West Ham fan, long suffering.
Oh, you've just lost about 100 million quid, haven't you?
Well, lost 100 million quid, hopefully not personally, otherwise I'm in trouble with
Any
a
more
wife,
people can resign? I mean, even though I say I'm not a football fan, I do know a little bit about the boardroom antics of West Ham. So any more people from the board that you can lose? Karen Brady's gone, David Sullivan's gone. Anybody else going to bail out?
Oh, at this rate, who knows? I am a fan of the new guy. I can't pronounce his surname. Kretinsky or something. The new.
I've got absolutely no idea whatsoever.
Hopefully he sorts this out.
Yeah. So anyway, look, not my thing at all. Thank goodness. I much prefer the tribalism of politics. Malcolm Offord, thank you very much indeed for joining me. Lee, I don't know if you're hanging about. Maybe you're going to hang about for a little bit longer. Let's do some news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning, I'm Edward Hughes. Instead of sorting knife crime or whatever, we're all screaming about migration while JD Vance chimes in from across the pond and Elon Musk stirs the pot online. Keir Starmer's team is on damage control, calling it all nonsense. Classic. Royal Mail finally delivers a new parent magazine to a dad, 19 years late. Peak post office efficiency. M&S is heroically training 1,000 young people, not in jobs or education, because nothing says, we've got this, like a retailer stepping in where the system failed. A man arrested 22 years after another teen killing. Justice. Fashionably late as ever. And somewhere in all this, royals had a wedding, and the economy's wobbling thanks to distant wars. God save the Queen, or whoever's in charge. Brilliant. Laters, tigers.
Thank you, Edward. So just gone 8 o'clock. Let's go back to this David Lammy story. So I think this should be the front page of every newspaper, certainly the commonsensical newspapers of this country, those that purport to be on the centre-right, the likes of the Mail, the Express and so on. David Lammy's performance yesterday, first of all on the Trevor Phillips show, and then on Laura Kuenssberg's show, if you can kind of bear to watch the BBC, was absolutely dire, was pathetic. He made a real fool of himself, as usual. Don't forget, this is the man that couldn't get almost his own name right on Celebrity Mastermind, and also lamented the lack of police live on a television camera with a police officer standing right behind him. That is David Lammy. I referred to him earlier on. I raised the question of Emma, which she decided to sidestep. Is he the epitome of a DEI hire? Let's just watch this clip and see what you think, because this man tied himself up in knots, and I wonder why he is the Deputy Prime Minister and Justice Secretary of Great Britain.
That we've seen proof of what they call two-tier policing. And I want to show everyone the guidance that they've talked about to kind of prove that point that you've already referred to. This is a police chief's guidance. It says, our commitment to racial equity means producing equality of policing outcomes for people from different ethnic groups. Now, that's a bit of a word salad, but this is the really key phrase. It does not mean treating everyone the same or being colourblind. Now, that sounds like it goes absolutely against the principle that you've said a couple of times this morning already, that we are all equal before the law.
Yeah, I'm really clear. We're all equal before the law.
So is that wrong, then, that guidance?
The complexity is equality does not always necessarily mean the same. And that's why I use the example of someone who's Jewish and what they eat. Or, for example, in the criminal justice, the most overrepresented group in the criminal justice system are Gypsy, Roma, Traveller. Now,
but is that appropriate? This is the question. One of your colleagues, Sarah Jones, the policing minister, says the language in that is wrong. It gives the wrong impression.
You said it's a bit of a word salad. It needs review, because in the end, officers have got to know, they've got to understand it, they've got to know what the primary goal is, and in the end, what the public want to see, whatever their colour, in reaction to Henry Novak, is good policing. And the questions are, did we see good policing? But as Kay has said, this is a complex unfolding situation. Let those who are charged to investigate properly investigate it, but understand that context can be different for different groups.
But I'm asking you really about the wider principles that this has raised here. Do you think that we do now have a situation, looking at guidance like that, where what your critics call two-tier policing is now sometimes something that happens?
No, I don't recognise two-tier policing across our country.
So he says that two-tier policing definitely doesn't exist. By the way, it does. It really, really does, as the Henry Novak case rather demonstrates. But then he says that context is important and that therefore, within context, it's right and understandable and acceptable that people of different colours, races, religions, whatever, should and can be treated differently. Lee, help me square this circle.
I can't square any circle involving David Lammy logic, unfortunately.
He wouldn't even know what a square or a circle were, would he? You just imagine one of those things, you know, where you have to put the square peg in the square hole, or the round peg in the round hole. He'd be sitting there going, yeah, no, I'm not getting it. Can someone explain this to me, please? I really don't understand,
That's
wouldn't he?
exactly that. I was watching this live, and I was live tweeting it out at the same time. I'm like, he is literally saying that there is no such thing as two-tier, yet everyone has to be treated differently. And the other thing that he seems to have missed, if we use that logic, we actually need to arrest more ethnic minorities, because the Japanese, for example, commit less crimes than average. So if he wants equity of outcome, well, that means arresting more Japanese, more Sikhs, more whatever, to balance it all out. But it is just the definition of this idiocy. If you break the law, you get arrested. Don't care who you are, where you come from, what your background. This shouldn't be complicated. We are overcomplicating such simple things.
So the police seem to be, but I mean, by way of this race action plan that apparently is in place now across Britain, so not just in Hampshire Constabulary,
all across the country,
which obviously was the constabulary that totally and woefully and tragically mishandled the Henry Novak incident and murder. I mean, arguably, if they had treated that scene appropriately without immediately assuming that the white guy was the bad guy and the brown person was the one that had been aggrieved, maybe Henry Novak would still be alive. I'm just putting that out there. Maybe that would be the case. But we have now this race action plan, which effectively, in writing, on police websites says that ethnic minorities, people with brown and black skin, should be treated more favourably in order to make sure that there is a balanced outcome, so that we don't get this thing that actually David Lammy was banging on about yesterday, which was this outrage in his view that there are proportionally more black and Asian people in prison per capita of the population. Well, that might be, for instance, dare I venture, I'm going to get into very hot water here, but this is just how it is, that if you are in South London as a police officer and the last 10 people that you've nicked for carrying a knife are black kids in tracksuits, why would you not then look at black kids with tracksuits in the future as being a prime stop and search target and subject? It's just rational, it's logical, isn't it? But David Lammy would say, and has said, that's racist.
Yeah, and it's utterly idiotic. I said to Mike a few weeks ago, I lived in Singapore for a decade. I've travelled all around the world for work. And do you know what happens when I go to the airport? I get stopped and searched a lot. Do you know why? Because I'm a middle-aged brown bloke. And unfortunately, people who look like me have a propensity to occasionally hijack planes, right? So on the one hand, do I get frustrated because I get stopped and searched at the airport? It's become a running joke with me and my wife.
But hasn't it gone full circle now? Well, you're now least likely to be stopped and searched.
No.
I'm more likely.
Not at an airport. But that's what it should be, because it's just efficient use of resources, right? Why would you stop and search my Japanese wife? There's no Japanese people causing trouble at airports.
It's what we call logic.
Well, yes, but we don't do that anymore.
No, we're not allowed to.
So we sit here and we want this limited number of police resource to stop and search my granny and you and whatever, and
nuns and vicars,
just so that other people don't feel bad. And it's like, well, actually, there are issues here within certain communities and certain demographics and so on. And one of the things that Lammy and the left get wrong is they try to make this about all ethnic minorities. If you actually deep dive the data, for example, if somebody has come from India, they are more likely to be a high earner than a criminal. In fact, on average, they earn more than a white British person. However, if you look at the Bangladeshi community or the Pakistani community, you can inverse that on its head, and they're less likely to do so. So when you're looking at to solve these problems, just look at the data. What does it say? There's reasons for it, and you address it accordingly.
Rightly or wrongly,
It doesn't mean everyone in one of those groups is a bad person or so on.
But
it's just
demographics.
It's just a common sense approach, which again we don't do.
Different demographics are different. Talking of different demographics, should we have a word with Christo? Christo Fufas. Oh, look, there he is.
Hello. I am just setting up my
Fufas.
camera, making it look beautiful for you.
Stop. It's not your show. Hang on. Shush. Where are you? You're supposed to be here in the studio.
I got a better offer.
No, I can see where you are, you cheeky sod. I can see exactly where you are.
There. Can you see me better now?
Well, unfortunately, yes.
Don't be rude. Be nice
How
to
are
me.
you? How are you? We're just talking about stop and search. Must happen a lot outside your house in South London.
Well, I do live in Brixton, actually, yeah, so it does happen occasionally. But no, it is ridiculous that we are talking about. I mean, it's two stories today. One is the race equality chief saying, look, actually, we are not doing enough still when it comes to DEI. But then, of course, you've got the other story in the Times saying, actually, we're spending like millions and millions on DEI. So I don't understand how those two stories align. And something very odd has happened in the last 20 years, in as much as whether you're gay, whether you are black, whether you are whatever it is, it used to be about equality in the eyes of the law, and you just basically wanted equality to get married, equality when it came to whatever crime you might be accused of. And what has happened is actually these things have now become about trying to make the majority feel bad about themselves, or a presumption that because you come from a community that is not a minority, that you must already have it inherently within you that you have some sort of prejudice, and that it's almost this sort of guilt until a proof of innocence when we have those sorts of things. And it just doesn't really, to me, appear to be the right way of doing things, because
it's. I mean, where we are now. I mean, you and I. Look, we've known each other for a while. So you and I have done talk and GB News and all sorts of stuff together. And you and I know have talked a lot over the years about this kind of DEI, so-called equality quest, kind of ending up in a place where actually tragedy and disproportion will occur. You know, if you try to, kind of tweak and manipulate outcomes, then you're going to get some bad unintended consequences. And Henry Novak's situation, I think, is the absolute demonstration and epitome of that. That you have police training, so official training across the nation, based on this race action plan that says that actually you should effectively let brown and black people off the hook, that if someone screams racist and points at a white person for being a racist, you should assume that they're correct and that they're telling the truth. And that's why you end up with poor Henry Novak, who seemingly had done nothing wrong, lying there in a pool of blood, dying with his Miranda rights being read to him, ringing in his ears as he takes his last breath.
I mean, this is one of the worst stories, I think, in the years I have covered this sort of stuff, because and what is even worse about this, as bad as it is and as dreadful as it is that we have political leaders that don't even want to acknowledge that there's a problem, or who seem to want to point to the people acknowledging they're the problem, saying, oh, you're creating division. Like, division is this horrific thing that might happen, and that it's more important that we allow the problem to continue than we have any kind of division. It doesn't seem to make any sense, and it's incredibly depressing, and it's actually an affront to this poor boy's memory that they are using the words of the family, who clearly meant that the Sikh community should not be targeted for this, rather than that we shouldn't ask the kinds of questions that will stop this happening again. And it's absolutely reasonable to ask the sorts of questions like, did the fact that it was a particular racism allegation that came from the Digwar family, did that mean that the police lost all critical thinking skills at the scene? The job of the police is to get to a scene, assess it, and see who is telling the truth, who isn't, what is going on, let's take it step by step. Whereas in this case, that clearly didn't happen. And it's a reasonable question to ask, was that because of the fear of an accusation of racism on behalf of the police being accused of that? Was it the fact that there was an accusation of racism from the Digwar family, weaponizing the fear of racism, that meant that the police were not critical in their thinking? Was this from higher up? Was it as a result of DEI training? Those are all reasonable questions. It might be that we find that actually it was a completely different reason. It might be that it was just police incompetence, but we're not going to know that unless we ask those important questions. And
Yeah,
the
and
fact that
Christo,
we are not asking those questions is outrageous.
well, that's because you can't ask the questions without someone like Keir Starmer or David Lammy or any other member of the front bench of the Labour Party saying, you can't talk about this, you can't ask those questions, because if you do, you're an agitator, you're a thug, you're far right, and so on. It's exactly what Keir Starmer did in July 2024, when there were people on the streets protesting about migrants in migrant hotels raping people and being paedophiles. We were told then that if you protest, you're racist. We've got exactly the same situation now. So, of course, we can't ask those poignant questions. We can't talk about this subject because you've got people like David Lammy, the kind of the cluster mess that he is, going onto the Sunday shows. Why they wheel him out, I really don't know. And trying to explain that there's definitely no such thing as two-tier policing, even though actually he says, he concedes that, well, actually, when it comes to skin colour, of course, there's a context. In other words, we're all equal, but some of us are a bit more equal than others.
And why? I'm a great believer in us all just talking and trying to get to some sort of resolution. And what they don't understand, what they're too thick to realise, is if they are genuinely worried about the far right, as they call it, if they are genuinely worried about people going to forces on the fringes that do not have their best interests at heart and will cause division within our nation, then the best surefire way of doing that is ignoring the people who are reasonably asking questions. It's also an arrogance and almost a gaslighting of the public, because do they not realise that the public saw how they reacted to George Floyd and how, when there was that horrific death, I mean, the death of George Floyd was an horrific event, but they were queuing up to talk about how terrible that was and whether the police were responsible and ask those sorts of questions. But when it happens here and it happens to this poor Henry Novak, there just seems to be this complete lack of critical thinking, and they seem to believe that the public are too stupid to remember their reaction to George Floyd. And then a brave hypocrisy.
Yeah, then a brave and bold politician like Nigel Farage stands up and says, hang on, this is exactly the time to be talking about the fact that there is absolutely two-tier policing. And he gets castigated. You get the entire House of Commons effectively cajoling him and jeering him. I'd suggest actually the fact that Nigel PMQs on Wednesday was criticised as he was by the population of the House of Commons says everything we need to know about how out of touch members of Parliament are versus the rest of the population of Britain. I mean, of course he should have stood up and said what he said. And the fact that he talked about us feeling, showing, displaying such a thing as pure cold rage. I mean, he was just articulating what most of us, most sensible, common sense people are feeling about such things. Because, of course, Henry Novak, I'm afraid, is not the first case.
I'll be honest. I get why Farage feels the way he does, and I do think he is articulating what some people feel. I probably wouldn't have used those particular words myself, because I think it gave an easy win to the other politicians who then make the conversation about the words he used rather than the point he is making. Where I 100% agree with you, though, is it's absolutely reasonable for him to bring it up in the House of Commons. Where else would you bring it up other than in Prime Minister's questions? And then and then they wheel out all these Labour MPs saying it was outrageous. The whole of the House of Commons were united until his question. Well, hang on. The House of Commons shouldn't be united on this issue, because that means united means that everyone's thinking the same. But if everyone's thinking the same, that means that no one is asking any critical questions about this. If everyone thinks the same, nothing's going to actually change. And so he was absolutely fair and reasonable to bring that up. Absolutely.
And effectively what Keir Starmer then attempted to do in his answer was to censor Nigel Farage as a prominent and popular politician, a man that leads a party that's just won the local elections. He's effectively tried to say to him, look, don't talk about this because it's divisive and we should not use and kind of then paraphrase what the parents of Henry Novak said with regard to using Henry's name divisively. Let me give you a kind of contrasting example of why that utterance, that kind of perception.
Can I just make one very quick point about that as well, by the way? I think it's absolutely repellent the way in which the Labour politicians in this country are using the words of Henry Novak's family in order to shut down debate on this. But clearly, the Novak family meant when they said that they didn't want there to be division, that they don't want Sikh people, who have actually been a community that have integrated incredibly well into the United Kingdom. And this guy was not doing it based on a Sikh ideology, so-called, which we've seen from other communities. What they clearly meant was don't attack Sikh people in the street, which would be moronic. But it was actually Novak's family that first informed us that Novak had asked 4 times, that told them 4 times that he'd been stabbed, and 9 times that he could not breathe. Do you think that the family would have informed the media and all of us about those critical details if they didn't want reasonable questions asked and answers to be sought over this? So the idea that because they asked for no division, that we just forget about it, sit down, brush it all under the carpet, and not ask any questions is ridiculous.
But this kind of utterance, this perception that these instances should not be used for political gain. I mean, I don't think we've got a picture of this, but let's not forget what Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner did on news of George Floyd dying, which was for Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner, when she was Deputy Prime Minister, to take the knee in his office. Now, if that's not performative politics, if that's not using a person, a tragedy, an issue, an instance for political gain, I don't know what is. But here's the other thing that rather flies in the face of their contention that these things should never be used for political point scoring or capital. Guess how many times the words George Floyd have been used in Parliament versus the words Henry Novak? Any idea?
That's a very good question. Tell me.
Let me tell you. George Floyd's name has been used in Parliament 19 times. Henry Novak's name has been used in Parliament 3 times.
And the time it was shut down. The time it was one of those times would have been with Farage, and it would have been absolutely shut down.
There you go. There's the picture of the horror, the incompetent, the gaslighter, the ruiner of Britain that is Keir Starmer, and he's one-time hoppo, soon potentially to be Prime Minister again. Look, Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner taking the knee, capitalising on what happened to George Floyd, because of course it was white on black rather than brown on white. Let's just be honest as to why there's a difference in the way that the Labour Party deal with such performative politics.
And then, of course, you've got David Lammy. And again, you know, this hilarious, they wheel him out because, I mean, I think it's 2 short planks. I have more respect for Wood than to call him that. But he then says that actually he won't take the knee for Henry Novak because it's symbolism and that no one wants that symbolism. Oh, so since when did taking the knee become this just meaningless symbolism? I mean, that just proves that when it comes to George Floyd, that's what that was in their minds. And look, I think sometimes, again, you know, we may disagree on this, I think sometimes a little bit of symbolism is okay. You know, if you take the knee once because you want to say I'm anti-racist, you know, if the England team want to do it once, great, do it, fine, fair enough, do it once, you made your point, great. But it was this idea that you had to do it every 5 minutes. It was the idea that the England team were doing it before every single game. But when you do it every single time, or you do it countless times, or you're expected to do it, it becomes completely meaningless. It does become symbolism. You know, if you do something more than once, then it becomes completely pointless, meaningless. And what
Christo, I hate to cut you off in your prime. You and I could talk all day and often do behind the scenes. If only there was a microphone sometimes on the desk when you and I are having our kind of offline moments. We'll do this again. But we've got to go because I've got a guest that's far more important than you coming up. Lovely to be here.
Fair enough. I agree.
See you soon, darling. See you soon. Okay, a serious point now. The next guest on the Mike Graham show is Siobhan White, the mother of Rhiannon White. Now, I know she's been on the show before, but I asked her to come on the show yesterday on the basis that there is a huge and significant disparity in the way that Siobhan White and her family have been treated by government and politicians and indeed the media versus Henry Novak. And I think I might know why. But let's just say hello to Siobhan. Siobhan, thank you very much for joining me. And I'm really sorry for keeping you waiting. But Christo Foufas, you probably know Christo Foufas. Once he starts, there's just no stopping him. He's like an official woman. He just bangs on and on and on. No wonder he's an accomplished broadcaster, well, in his own head anyway. Look, Siobhan, thank you very much for joining me. Would you mind just kind of going through, and I know this is difficult, but the tragedy that you have encountered at the hands of the murderer of your daughter? Would you just take us through what happened?
Yeah, Rhiannon was coming home from work and was murdered by an illegal migrant that lived in the hotel that Rhiannon worked at. He stalked her for hours, didn't know her, she didn't know him, and on the train station platform where she was literally 2 minutes from getting a train, he stabbed her 23 times, left her fighting for her life for 3 days.
I just,
yeah, and then it's 15 months of fighting in a court.
I can't begin to comprehend what you've gone through, that being happening. Obviously, he's now been convicted. He's serving 20 plus years, not long enough from my point of view. Some people actually, not me, I'm not an advocate of it, but some people would call for the death penalty for such a hideous, unprovoked and bloody attack on an innocent woman that was just going about her business. But that's a debate for another day. What I want to talk about is the way that you feel about the treatment of you and your family by politicians, and the fact that it does seem that politicians, particularly the government, the Labour government and Keir Starmer specifically, they decide which political ball to pick up based on a whole bunch of similar circumstances. And obviously I'm talking about the Henry Novak comparison here. And they treat those instances differently, seemingly to suit their political narrative. I mean, I guess the first question I have to ask, given that the government were very, very slow actually at issuing a statement, they had to be pushed and forced to issue a statement about Henry Novak. But then all of a sudden the kind of PR wheels, in my opinion, started to churn within Downing Street. And Henry Novak's parents were invited to tea, make it look good, because Keir Starmer would have looked bad not to have done. How many times have you been invited to tea at Downing Street, Siobhan?
Never. He's not responded to my emails. Shabana Mahmood has not responded to my emails. And in the case of Henry Novak, my heart breaks for that poor boy and his family. But we all know that the narrative of the story is totally different from Rhiannon's, and was Starmer backed into a corner with this case? We don't know, but I've had no acknowledgement through Starmer or anybody, not even a receipt of an email. It's just been brushed under the carpet. And, you know, I'm fighting for my daughter and I'm not getting anywhere. I feel like I'm just ready to just say, okay, nobody wants to listen. What's the point?
Well, Siobhan, we're listening. That's why you're on the show, and obviously you have been on the show at Mike's invitation several times. We're listening, and we want to help in whichever way we can. What is it exactly you want from Keir Starmer?
Do you know what? It doesn't matter what I want, because I don't think he'll meet me, because I'll be too honest for him and tell him how I feel. I would happily meet other families going through this, other families that are, you know, haven't spoke out or feel like they've been silenced. We'll never be silenced. I just want people to remember this. We will never be silenced, be it your daughter, your child, your grandchild, you know, your son, your grandchild, your mother. We need to put a proper stand on this now, because Starmer, to me, I may be wrong, to me, it's a different thing, because it was a illegal migrant involved. And in poor Henry's case, it was a Sikh. Now, I'm not saying all Sikhs are the same. That's irrelevant to me. What I'm saying is, because the police were involved, the police let that poor child down. So, of course, Starmer's going to have to stand there and be fake and, you know, put up this front that he actually cares, when we know he doesn't give a damn.
Siobhan, I'm going to put something to you that I think is the reason why these instances are dealt with differently. So the perpetrator of the murder of Henry Novak was a British-born Sikh. So you know, there's no question of illegality surrounding that instance, that perpetrator. But the murder of your daughter, Rhiannon, was an illegal immigrant. He was an asylum seeker that had been in Britain for just 3 months, residing, as you say, in the asylum hotel that your daughter was working at. Do you think that the reason that you're being shunned, the reason that you're not being listened to, you're not being granted an audience so that you can explain your concerns and maybe actually help government to do the right thing in future to prevent this kind of thing happening again and again and again, do you think it's because of their discomfort and embarrassment at the fact that the murderer of your daughter Rhiannon was an illegal asylum seeker, and that therefore means that blood is on the hands of government? In other words, if the Conservatives, because bearing in mind that the murder of your daughter came into this country illegally in July 2024, so it was literally the handover, if you like, from Rishi Sunak to Keir Starmer, both the Conservative government and therefore the Labour government, who have continued in the same vein really, they have blood on their hands, don't they? Because if they had
I have stated this, I have said Starmer and the government before him, they do have blood on their hands. I mean, you know, this scumbag who murdered my daughter, he was denied asylum in Germany and Italy, but allowed to travel to France, to come to England, and in this country 11 weeks, and took my daughter's life. Is there an embarrassment to the government? Maybe, and I hope there is. I hope they feel so ashamed of themselves, from Starmer to the government before him, etc., because this has to stop. I mean, my heart breaks every single day, and then I'm hearing stories about Henry Novak. Yes, again, it wasn't an illegal, but the way the police treated him. I mean, I was fortunate enough, my family were fortunate enough that our police and our liaison officers were absolutely fantastic. They made an arrest within 5 hours, and they fought and they fought and they fought for us. And, you know, him getting life, minimum 29 years, it's nothing.
It's not enough.
We were given a life sentence that day that we had to hold her hand and watch her die. But again, the government don't care. They've just literally just shunned us. They've shunned us, but how many more? I mean, you know, families going through this, please reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to anyone. I'm happy to find a solution. And it's got to the stage now that I've had to reach out to America. You know, to Donald Trump and to Elon Musk, because our own government is crap, basically, and they're not even they're not giving me answers that I want.
Have you had a response from the American administration or from Elon Musk?
It really went viral Saturday, I think, and from there, I'm hoping even just they've acknowledged it. That would mean more than what Starmer has done.
Well, what do you think? I mean, JD Vance over the weekend has castigated Britain for its allowing what JD Vance calls an invasion of illegal migrants into Britain, something I agree with. I suspect you agree with JD Vance too.
Yeah, I do. I totally agree with him. He's right. And then again, because he said what he says, and, you know, he believes in, it's right. You know, we are being invaded, and now he'll be treated like dirt, basically, because he's got a voice, and that's the problem. You get a voice in this country and you get shut down, you get silenced. Well, I'm sorry, I will not be silenced for my child.
Good. And I hate to ask this, but I think it's poignant. Given the fact that there are between 40 and 50,000 illegal boat migrants that come into this country that we know of every year, we don't know who they are. We know that some have criminal backgrounds, terrorist backgrounds, some have criminal intent. There's, in fact, the front, I think, of the Daily Express this morning actually characterises what one migrant says: Britain won't send us back, boast the criminals. And this particular individual says, I'm going to do whatever I can, by hook or by crook, to break the law, to earn money in Britain. So not just content with us having our hands out when it comes to accommodation and money and so on, also being determined to come here and break the law.
I mean, this is why I'm fighting for Rhiannon's law. So
and what would that be, Siobhan? What would Rhiannon's law look like?
It would be that they get medically checked, because the scumbag who murdered my daughter was HIV positive, untreated. They get medically checked, they get ID checked, they get criminal checks, they have curfews, they get tagged. They should be put on from some kind of barracks, not allowed to wander hotels and HMOs and live their life that Starmer and this government is allowing them, because we're living in fear. I'm living in fear for my grandchildren growing up. I'm living in fear for other people, other children growing up. And if I can get some kind of law in place for Rhiannon, and get these checks done, and what would it be? Oh, the government can't afford that. Yeah, you can, because you can send billions out to France to stop them. But I tell you what, then you're letting them in, and now they're coming in from Belgium as well. What are we meant to do?
How many more of these instances, these anonymous, unchecked, undocumented men from Sudan, as was the case with Rhiannon's murderer, or Afghanistan, or wherever, right? So Holland, United States, Hong Kong, wherever. How many more of these instances do we need to see, and for government to be part of and to empower to be responsible for? How many more of these instances before the government actually wakes up to the problem that is illegal migration in this country?
There shouldn't be any more of these incidents, because they should have woken up by now. They should have taken action by now, because, like you say, how many more is this going to happen to? How many families are going to be suffering a life sentence? I have not been able to wake up and see my daughter, or get a phone call, or know that a little boy has his mum's not here anymore. How much more? And I've got to keep fighting for that child. I've got to keep fighting for my family, my other grandchildren, and other women. But the government, I think where illegal's concerned, they don't care.
I'm afraid, I hate to say, that despite the fact that government's first task, its first responsibility is to protect its people, Siobhan, I'm afraid, I think you're right. I don't think they do care. I think they care more about ideology. They care more about the principle of migration by any means into this country. I think they care more about that, more about the welfare of migrants, more about so-called boosting our economy with migrants, which of course is not happening.
No, but they're causing these issues.
Than they do the memory and the protection of people like your daughter. Siobhan, look, thank you very much indeed. I know, look, you've been on this show a bit, and so I guess, look, this wasn't the first time that you've recounted your story, but it was the first time that you recounted it to me, and I'm very, very grateful. I do appreciate it very much. And you know that we are here to help you in any way or shape that we can. We will do that.
Thank you.
Siobhan, thank you very much indeed. Siobhan White there. What a harrowing story, and how difficult it is for the mother of someone that was stabbed 23 times by an illegal immigrant and asylum seeker, how difficult to recount that, and how appalling, frankly, that our government, Keir Starmer, etc., haven't even bothered replying to her emails. What an absolute disgrace. Anyway, someone that isn't a disgrace, Lee Nalalingam, has sat here patiently through that. What do you think of that before you go?
Awful, just absolutely horrific. And the fact they haven't even been able to respond to an email, it just says everything that we fear about this government.
Yeah.
And it strikes home a little bit, because around this time last year, I had to have the police come and take away a gentleman from the hotel down the road from me, the Britannia Hotel, who was in the park armed with a sharp object in the toddler's playground.
And what did they do? Probably took him away and then released him 10 minutes later?
The police took him away, released him 10 minutes later, and then he was...
I was joking.
No, seriously.
That's what happened?
That's what happened. And then he was picked up down the road at another park, 5 minutes down the road, in the playground again a couple of hours later.
Wow. Lee, thanks for joining me. Until next time. Got another guest now. It is the one and only, the infamous Anne. Anne, where are you? Anne, can see you. I think you're on mute. Look, I've got to forgive you because you're Anne Widdicombe. So, and I can't lip read. So I don't know what you're doing there. I think you've muted yourself.
She's muted herself.
I'll just talk at you for a minute, shall I? Shall I tell you what I was going to say? Can you lip read, Anne? No. She's muted herself. Look, we actually made it, an hour and 39 minutes into the show without a glitch. And I'm glad it wasn't me that caused the glitch. It was the famous, the one and only Anne Widdecombe, who is a legend in our lifetimes, I have to say. Look, hopefully we'll be able to get her back in a second. I want to ask all sorts of things, as you'll imagine, about David Lammy, about two-tier policing and the Sunday shows generally, also about Makerfield and so on. And if you can hear me, I'm being asked, you've got to do what I call the Homer Simpson reset, which is to log off and back in again, and hopefully that will work. Anyway, we'll speak to Anne properly in a second once she's managed to do that. Let's, in the meantime, should we have a look at our poll? If we can get that back up on the screen, because I desperately want to know who is the thickest out of these four worthy contenders. We're now on 2,409 of your wonderful votes. David Lammy still well in the lead at 94%. Diane Abbott at just 4%. I thought she'd do better than that. Benny from Crossroads. Maybe it's because no one actually remembers who Benny from Crossroads is. You have to probably be over 50 to understand or remember who Benny from Crossroads is. He was the kind of hapless character in Crossroads, the soap opera, back in the 1970s, something that my mother used to watch religiously. And he was just, he was a very simple chap, should we say, but up there in terms of intellect with David Lammy for sure. Or actually in third place, Two Short Planks. But David Lammy winning for what was a pretty pathetic performance, I have to say, yesterday on the Sunday shows. Anne Widdecombe is back with us. Anne, can I hear you?
Well, it's not my mic. My mic
it's
is
us.
on and has been on.
It'll be us. Anne, I'm not arguing with you because I'll lose. How are you? Good to see you, and thank you very much indeed for being on the show.
I'm very well. I wasn't expecting to see you this morning, so good morning. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm just, I'm a younger and better-looking version of Mike Graham. Right, did you see the Sunday shows yesterday? I guess as a kind of a Politico you did. What did you make of David Lammy's performance, honestly? And look, you might want to provide some balance in terms of, I don't know, balancing the fact that I've been very hard on David Lammy in the last hour and 40 minutes. I think his performance, particularly on the Laura Kuenssberg show, was outrageously pathetic and hypocritical and laughable, actually, when it comes to him trying to set out that two-tier policing does not exist in Britain, when I'm sure you'll agree with me, Anne, that it does, and then sets out that actually, by contrast, equality doesn't always mean being equal, as in the same treatment by the police. What do you make of that nonsense?
Oh, it is nonsense. It is utter nonsense. I didn't see the interview, but of course there's been widespread reporting. First of all, the claim that there isn't two-tier policing. We know for a solid fact that the police issued guidance, nobody else did, saying that they mustn't treat everybody the same. And that they must pay particular attention to complaints made by racial minorities. We know they've got form on this. We know that a few years ago they issued exactly the same sort of guidance in respect of women who, and indeed people claiming paedophilia from the past, but also women claiming sexual assault. We know that they said the victim must be believed, and the accused was referred to as the perpetrator right from the start. Now, they've simply got form in not saying that equal treatment before the law is exactly that. It means that the man is equal to the woman as well as the woman to the man, the white to the black as well as the black to the white. Now, I said all of that at 2 successive Reform Party conferences, and we've been working on it for some time, and we've now come up with the Equal Treatment Act. But let's get back to Lammy. So first of all, the idea that there isn't unequal treatment under the law is quite wrong. Secondly, his definition of equality seems to be just that there is inequality, and that is so ludicrous that I've often wondered with Lammy why he's still in post. I mean, the stuff he comes up with.
Well, and can I venture that he's the ultimate DEI hire? I mean, that's my question.
Possibly, but he's been elected like everybody else in Parliament, and then, Prime Ministers must answer as to why they have regularly selected him to fulfil quite high office, in fact, very high office. But the fact is that he is useless, has been for a long time. I mean, he thinks that there was a king called Henry IX.
That was the mastermind question, wasn't it? So, who came after Henry VIII? Henry VII.
And
yes.
he also thought that not Marie Curie, but Marie Antoinette was the famous inventor of radium.
Yes, indeed.
Discoverer. Yeah.
Yes, not a performance to be lauded. Let's talk about Makerfield as you're on. Obviously, by-election in, 10 days' time, so the 18th of June. I'm not sure if you've been up there yet, have you, Anne, to help reform campaign. Andy Burnham seems to be digging himself a hole that is deeper and deeper and deeper, in my opinion, whereby, of course, you've got his credentials, which are very open border, pro-EU. He's also said over the weekend, for instance, that he thinks asylum seekers should be allowed to come here and work, which you and I would probably say is quite the incentive. Not that there weren't incentive enough for people to come over on boats here. Do you think Andy Burnham's going to win?
Well, I do sincerely hope not. And I find it quite ironic, actually, that the Labour Party up there are making hay with some indiscreet remarks that our candidate made donkey's years ago. I mean, really donkey's years ago. And yet, from the recent pronouncements of Andy Burnham, we don't have to go digging back, for the recent pronouncements of Andy Burnham clash with what he is now saying. He doesn't quite dare to say, yes, we should go back into the EU. Because he knows that he's contesting a massive, an absolutely massive Brexit constituency. So he doesn't want to say that anymore, but he did say it not very long ago. And similarly, open borders and the other beliefs that he has. He is very left-wing, let's face that. He is.
Do you think he's more left-wing than Starmer, Anne?
Oh, he's more left-wing than Starmer. I mean, he's not as crazy as Corbyn, but he's more left-wing than Starmer. And we've got to understand that if he goes into Parliament and if he does become the leader of the Labour Party, those policies, which he so recently espoused very enthusiastically, are what Britain is going to be lumbered with for another 3 years, probably.
And do you buy into this? I mean, he's denied it recently, but this call a general election narrative that is being attributed to Andy Burnham, that if he wins in Makerfield, that he'll immediately call a general election. I guess because he knows that because he's so left-wing, it'll kind of take us further down the Helena handcart path, I suppose. Do you buy into that? And will the consequence of that be effectively a potential Labour Party, Green Party coalition for 5 years thereafter, which, frankly, Anne, if that is true, I'm going to get my hat and coat and go.
Or don't forget your luggage while you're going. But I think that there is every likelihood that if he gets in, he will call a very quick general election. Most prime ministers, upon succeeding, do ask themselves that question, should they do that? There was huge speculation that Gordon Brown was going to do it, which I remember very, very well, because it might have upset my own retirement. So it's quite likely, I think, that he will call an immediate general election. Now, if he does, the question, I think, is not whether the Labour and the Greens expect on that, because I think if he does call a general election, people's current perception of Labour is so utterly low that I think we could well have a rather different result from the one that you suggest. But I don't postulate, I never have.
Are you suggesting
let me just say this, because I really do want to say this in case people get the wrong idea. I have never said that there is some sort of moral compulsion to have a general election just because you change the Prime Minister.
I'll say this not as a Reform councillor, which I am, but as a presenter of the Mike Graham show. Let me ask the question then, as a broadcaster rather than as a Reform member. Are you advocating a Reform Conservative coalition if it comes to it?
No. And let me tell you exactly why. People talk about unite the right. The Conservative Party is not right. It's got a vast, soggy Lib Dem wing, huge.
A soggy bottom.
If you want proof of that, just look at the Ashcroft polls, which show that 21% of normal Conservative voters actually would prefer a Labour Lib Dem coalition to a Reform government. Now, when you've got that sort of thought, you don't want to join that sort of party. They're not right. What I've always advocated, I'm not speaking for reform now, I'm speaking for Anne Widdecombe, but what I've always advocated is that you fight alone as reform, and if perchance, when the election is completed, reform is the largest party, but doesn't have enough to form a government, or doesn't have enough to form a really credible, safe, stable government, cherry pick then the right wing of the Conservative Party and invite them to help. But don't just ally with that great soggy Lib Dem mess.
Yeah, it's about time people realise that Reform actually are the new Conservative Party, and I say that as a small c Conservative word. So conservatism as an ideology is what Reform are all about. I mean, I'm actually an absolute unashamed Thatcherite. That's why I am.
Yeah,
but I also would contend that if Margaret Thatcher was a politician now, she would be much more likely to be a Reform politician than a modern-day Big C Conservative politician, because thanks to the likes of David Cameron and Theresa May and Boris and Rishi Sunak onwards, the Conservative Party as a brand may have remained the same, and I understand therefore why there's loyalty to the Big C Conservative brand. But as a movement, as a political ideology, it's effectively kind of Lib Dem Max.
Yeah. And it started with Cameron. That's where the rot started. And Cameron loved his time in coalition with the Lib Dems. I've never really worked out why Cameron was a Conservative and not a Lib Dem.
Well, you know why? It's because they knew, these individuals knew that they would never get elected as Lib Dems. The Liberals haven't been elected to government since, I don't know, about 1810 or something crazy. David Cameron was the epitome of the Lib Dems. We should have realised, shouldn't we, that when he started going up to the North Pole on a skidoo talking about the ozone layer, when he started talking about hugging bloody hoodies, we should have known what a woke individual David Cameron was, and that was going to take the Conservative Party that you and I used to love, lurched leftwards, and it hasn't recovered.
I think it's summed up in his own slogan, which is vote blue, get green. That was his own slogan. And I think that sums it up entirely. David Cameron was never and is not a proper Conservative. But anyway, never mind. That's the past. What you've got to look at is the future. And I agree with you. If only we had Mrs. T now. But we don't. And what we've got to get back is some of the determination and the willingness simply to fight off all the forces of liberalism against it. We need the determination, and that's what we need to get back in our leaders. I think we've got it in Reform. I don't think we've got it in the Conservatives. I mean, Kemi Badenoch has raised her game at the dispatch box, but just tell me one original idea that she's already had. I mean, her approach is she waits for Reform to trail big ideas like getting rid of ECHR, which we always said we would do. And then when she sees that the public quite like it, and doubtless they've all done their little focus groups as well, then suddenly she announces that she's going to do that. Same for detention.
It's funny enough, the Conservative base like proper Conservative policies, like not having an unelected Strasbourg court decide what we do or what we don't do, particularly when it comes to deporting illegal migrants. You talked about determination. How do you feel about the French, Anne? Because I want to show you a clip before you go, which is the French having a wonderful time, and it's not at our expense for once, but this is a new trend in France, which is, I think it's called La Concorde Française, which is a movement by a millionaire businessman, an entrepreneur, which is to kind of, I suppose, unite the right, really, by way of banquets, vin rouge, and good old-fashioned French patriotic sing-songs. And I just show you this, and I'd love to get your comment on whether we should do this in Britain too. Just wait there.
So this is one of those Canon Francais banquets. As you can see, there are thousands of people here sitting on these long tables on benches, eating good French local food, good French local wine, generally having a good time. The ambiance, I would say, is halfway between a rugby international and one of those feasts at the end of the Asterix books. Now, the organisers say they're simply answering a crying need in the French countryside and provinces for a chance to celebrate tradition, terroir, that means locality, local food, and that's all there is to it. But the problem is that these banquets have become a political football in recent weeks, with their enemies on the political left saying they represent only one part of France. That's not the France of immigration, it's the old white France. They say this is just a front for the far right, basically. To which I have to say every single person we've spoken to here says absolutely not. It's open to everyone, we're here to have a good time, and that's all there is to it.
So, Anne, celebrating patriotism, whether you're French, Spanish, or Chinese, or British, or whatever, why here is it so frowned upon? I don't think we could do this without us being castigated by The Guardian and The Mirror for, promoting some kind of Nazi fest over turkey legs and red wine.
Well, I'm getting very tired of the allegation of far right every time you say something in support of the country or something critical of global politics. We're always called far right. They seem to be having a very good time there. Our conferences, of course, reform conferences, are very, very jolly.
It was just like that last year. It was just like that.
We don't do that, but we have very, very jolly, vibrant conferences, whereas the other parties have very po-faced conferences. And I'm all for a bit of jollity. Absolutely. And as you reported there, anybody could go. It wasn't restricted to any particular party.
No, that absolutely wasn't. Or to any demographic, for that matter. Look, I hope someone enterprise, bearing in mind the hospitality sector, Anne, needs rather a boost, doesn't it? Because of the way that Rachel Reeves has attacked the hospitality sector by way of increasing business rates and increasing the minimum wage, national insurance contributions by employers and so on. I would suggest that some enterprising people, maybe the likes of Adam Brooks and Tim, whatever his face is that owns Wetherspoons, should Tim Martin, thank you, Pooch. Pooch is here, everybody, by the way. You've probably heard him in the background. But I think the enterprising hospitality entrepreneurs should get on this in Britain. I think it would be an absolutely fantastic celebratory movement that we could all get behind. I'd certainly buy a ticket for 70 quid.
Well, I think we should remember that every time we have a jubilee, we have street parties. Yep. Or every time we have a major anniversary, like D-Day, for example, there are street parties and people go to them with huge enthusiasm. So why not have a big party celebrating British food, British drink, British wine if you must, whatever, why not? I don't see anything against it.
Do you think
being far right.
And do you think we'd all get too drunk? Because in France, they can seemingly sit there in cafes outside along the Champs-Élysées and drink red wine all day and get up and kind of get on their bikes and cycle home with no issue whatsoever. But of course, the Brits have this tendency, and I guess hopefully we won't, but we might see this in the World Cup in the coming weeks. We have a tendency to get rather bladdered and to make fools of ourselves and cause trouble. Do you think that would be a problem if we did that kind of thing here in Britain?
I think certainly there's an element of that. Football hooliganism has been an ongoing problem for us. And yes, there's an element of that. But no, if the Brits are getting together in a village hall, for example, and all the food is British and all the wine is British, I don't actually think you're going to get a load of drunken morons spoiling it. But yes, if you're going to have some absolutely huge event to which everybody is welcome, then you run that risk, but never mind.
Well, maybe if Tim Martin or Jeremy Clarkson does decide to put on some kind of celebratory, patriotic beer fest, I'll be there, and Widdicombe will be there. I think Mike Graham, assuming he comes back from the Chagos Islands sometime soon, will also be there. And I think we'll have an absolutely roaring time. Anne, I will see you along a trestle table with a glass of wine in each hand. Thank you very much indeed for gracing us with your presence. I know it's over already. I know. I'm sorry. You've been enjoying it so much, haven't you, Anne? Anne Widdicombe there. Thank you very, very much. I'm very, very grateful for your time. Thank you. I guess we better do some news with Edward Hughes, haven't we?
Good morning. I'm Edward Hughes. Instead of sorting knife crime or whatever, we're all screaming about migration while J.D. Vance chimes in from across the pond and Elon Musk stirs the pot online. Keir Starmer's team is on damage control, calling it all nonsense. Classic. Royal Mail finally delivers a new parent magazine to a dad, 19 years late. Peak post office efficiency. M&S is heroically training 1,000 young people, not in jobs or education, because nothing says, we've got this, like a retailer stepping in where the system failed. A man arrested 22 years after another teen killing. Justice. Fashionably late as ever. And somewhere in all this, royals had a wedding, and the economy's wobbling thanks to distant wars. God save the Queen, or whoever's in charge. Brilliant. Laters, tigers.
Latest Tigers. He's a wonder, isn't he? Wow. The broadcasting legend there that is Edward Hughes. Talking of broadcasting legends, Sunil Sharma now joins me as my next guest. It's a very, very busy roster. Sorry if we're running over a little bit, Sunil. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, last time we were on a screen together, I think you interviewed me for your podcast, didn't you?
Correct. We were talking about why you had left the Conservative Party and joined Reform, and we were
Or White had left me.
General.
White left me.
No, I left you, exactly. And we
yeah.
were just talking about general, the failures of conservatism in the last 10, 20 odd years. So yeah, it was a really good show, really good.
Which, funny enough, I was just talking to Anne Widdecombe about, as you probably caught just then, as in the Conservative Party lurching to the left. And I have to say, all of these people that are hanging on to the coattails of what was once the Conservative Party, you're nuts. It's changed. You know, it's a bit. You know what it reminds me of, Sunil? Do you remember when Coca-Cola changed their recipe? And everyone still thought it was Coke, but it wasn't, because it had changed its recipe and it tasted bloody horrible. It's exactly the same thing with the Conservative Party. They've changed the recipe, guys. They are not the Conservatives that you remember under Margaret Thatcher. Bless her. Right, Sunil, I want to talk to you about a favourite racing driver of mine, who I absolutely admire as an F1 driver. Technically 8 times world champion, because the last time he was robbed by I can't remember the name of the guy, but that's it, Michael Massey, the steward from the FIA. Anyway, an accomplished and legendary and superb driver, but his politics are crap, aren't they? Should we just watch the clip and then, because I know you, the reason I'm pointing this out to you is because I know that you tweeted about this yesterday, I saw it, and I'd like to get my head round how a man worth $500 million can lecture us on how there isn't enough money to go round for the poor people of LA and other places. Let's just play the clip and see what you all think of this outrage by Lewis Hamilton.
One of the things that I struggle with every day is, and it's just how life is, and it's been the way for thousands of years, that there is such a disparity between wealthy and the poor. And, you know, you still, when you drive around LA, there's still so many people living on the streets. You shouldn't be able to have billions, right? I think there should be a limit to how much you can have, because there's enough to go around to everyone. So somehow creating a law that creates more equality, and equal access to for everyone. You know, I don't know how that you would implement that law.
That's all good.
But geez, man, I've met kids that are starving.
Yeah, same.
And you think, oh God, how are we are so lucky, so many of us, and knowing that and not taking advantage of your everyday is so important.
Sunil, do you think that silly bucket hat of his is restricting his brain function? Right, this is a man that is worth $500 million. His girlfriend is a billionaire, Kim Kardashian, who is part of a family of billionaires. He sits there having the audacity to talk about distribution of wealth, effectively, and how billionaires should be capped and there shouldn't be billionaires. It's pretty convenient when he's not quite a billionaire himself. But, I mean, has this man got no presence of mind whatsoever? I mean, talking about driving through the streets of LA and seeing poor people, whilst also being domiciled in Monaco, not paying any bloody tax.
I mean, he is an absolute hypocrite. I think outside of racing, I think he has a serious lack of moral compass, just has no idea in terms of what he's talking about. I think he talks about what he thinks people want him to hear rather than actually having any principles or values. He's a fantastic Formula One driver and an absolute legend in that sport. Outside of that, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And to be fair, it makes sense. He's dedicated his life to this sport. It's such a competitive environment. That makes total sense. But why he then feels the need to lecture us about things that he has no understanding of is beyond me. And this isn't the first time he's done something like this. He's He's advocated for anti-oil. He's done anti-oil campaigns.
Anti-oil.
Which is
Hang on. The Formula One
bonkers.
circus is one of the biggest causes of carbon emissions on the planet. I mean, it is literally not just the cars racing around the track, of which there are 22. It's the planes that make up that organisation that fly to whatever it is, 24, 25 different destinations a year. I mean, they have a carbon footprint that I think is about the same size as Paris. I mean, how can he talk about? Oh well, we know why he can talk about this. Is because he's a gormless celebrity that thinks virtue signalling in some way makes himself and his mates feel better about themselves. Doesn't he also own a private jet?
Yeah, he owns a private jet. He goes around
But he's
the world
worried
in
about
his
the planet.
private jet. Just like his new girlfriend. This is a guy who kneeled for BLM. This is a guy who advocated for Africa to take back things from Britain. I mean, he just has absolutely no sense of principles, values. I think
Awareness.
he just does whether anything. Awareness. I think he just does anything that's trendy or that works for him. He's an embarrassment. I think it's becoming to a point now where he should stop speaking, carry on driving. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He has no idea. He has $500 million of wealth. He talked about he saw a kid in LA that he wanted to help. Well, he could have helped. He could have donated a lot of money and helped. I know he does some donations.
But not just that kid. Why doesn't he do a Warren Buffett, which would be to say, okay, I'm going to keep, I don't know, what's a decent amount of money to live on? 10 million? 20 million, 50 million, keep $50 million. Give you $450 million residue over and above that away. Do it publicly if you must, and then help not just the one kid on the side of the road in a tent in LA, but thousands of people. Do it properly and with purpose, and as I say, do it publicly if you have to, if you really want the credit for it. But to sit there in his $8,000 bucket hat, extolling the virtues of extinguishing billionaires, when the man's worth $500 million. I mean, it's beyond parody, this stuff.
100%. And I think that the reason he won't do it and the reason why he won't actually do this kind of thing that Warren Buffett would do is he doesn't actually care. That's clear. He's talking about things that he has no idea what he's talking about. If he actually cared, he could do things like the Warren Buffett things that he's doing, but he's not going to do that because he doesn't care about it enough. He's just going to say the things that he thinks people want to hear. He doesn't actually have anything himself. He doesn't have these principles and morals himself. So he's going to say those things that he thinks people want to. And now he's dating a Hollywood celebrity. So he'll probably say even more and more things that are just completely irrelevant. Focus on your driving. Focus on being one of the greatest Formula One drivers of all time. You could be such a great, somebody from Britain who is one of the greatest ever drivers. Could be such a shining light for this country, but instead he decides to, keep on attacking it. He said the other day how he supports Brazil just as much as England in the World Cup. It's embarrassing.
Well, he's the kind of Gary Lineker of Formula One, isn't he? I dare say that he advocates reparations being paid for slavery from 250 years ago, despite the fact that Britain was the first and only country to actually stop and protect slaves.
Yeah, I mean, He's just somebody, I think, like a lot of these people, unfortunately, a lot of these celebrities and sports people who've just, they've been able to be born in England, lived in England, trained amongst other English drivers. He's really benefited from being born in England, being born in Britain. And now that he's got this absurd levels of wealth, he thinks now it's his time to lecture things that he has no idea what he's talking about.
But Sunil, it's not just the wealth, is it? It's the fact that he has domiciled himself in Monaco for the last goodness knows how many years. And it's not because that's a particularly nice place to live. But believe me, I've been to Monaco a few times to Grand Prix. It's an incredibly built-up place. It's not, although it's full of luxury and Ferraris and Hermes shops and Chanel shops, whatever, it's actually quite a hemmed-in place to live. The only reason he's domiciled there is so that he doesn't have to pay any tax. Maybe if he paid his fair share of tax by way of being domiciled in Britain and paid either corporation tax at 25% or personal tax at a high rate of 45%, maybe some of that money then might be able to go to the very poor people by way of benefits, which no doubt he advocates there being lots of, hospitals, schools and so on. I'm struggling to remember, apart from perhaps David Lammy on the Sunday shows yesterday, a greater example of crass hypocrisy.
100%. And I think what's sad is he didn't get any pushback on that podcast. The guy opposite him, Jay, how he gets by on a day-to-day life saying these sort of things and no one corrects him, his PR team or whoever. Do they not understand, or can they not see how stupid it is for him to be saying these things considering the position he's in? He's in a position where if he wants to make change and he wants to do those things that he's talking about, he really, really could. He has that level of power and that wealth. Instead, he talks about things that he has no idea of. He says these things that people want to hear. And unfortunately, it's embarrassing for him. It's embarrassing for the sport. It's embarrassing for Britain. We should be talking about Lewis Hamilton as one of the greatest drivers of all time. Full stop. That's it. Yeah. That's what we should say when we say Lewis Hamilton's name. Instead, he's fueled this kind of thing where I think majority of British people won't like him as a person. I know we should separate the driver and then the person, and we should separate the two. I think it's important to do, but naturally, a lot of people are not going to be able to distinguish those two things. He's called Sir Lewis Hamilton. He's happy to take that knighthood. He's happy to take all those great things that Britain has done for him. But then straight away, he's not happy to pay the tax. He's not happy to actually contribute to society. Instead, he just wants to criticize it and do absolutely nothing about it. He's an embarrassment. I think there's nothing else to be said about him.
I think you did right, and I think his legacy may well be not just the fact that he was one of the, if not the greatest Formula One drivers of all time. That's an arguable and disputable point, but the fact that his legacy will be one of virtue signalling. Pomposity and nonsense. Sunil, thank you very much indeed. Good to see you. Hopefully you'll invite me back on your podcast again soon. I'm sure we can find lots of things to talk about. And talk about, we will do now, lots of things with Mark Littlewood. Thank you very much indeed for joining me, Mark.
Good to see you, Russell. There's been a coup, I see.
Yeah, we got rid of Mike.
Where are you holding Mike Graham?
Mike, the Chagos Islands.
Oh, right. Yeah. And what's the demanded ransom?
Yes, well I don't know. I'll pay to keep him away, put it that way. I think he's going to the Chagos Islands on the basis that he's got to try and stop Trump from buying them.
Yeah, fair point.
Trump thinks he can either invade or buy anything, it seems. But anyway. Any comment on the Lewis Hamilton thing? I mean, I don't know if you're an F1 fan.
I am,
And I know it's not the biggest story of the day, but I think it kind of should be up there on the basis that we now have so many of these virtue signalling celebrities that use their platform of millions of Instagram and TikTok viewers on the basis that they have got that audience through something else, another endeavour. Gary Lineker football, Lewis Hamilton Formula One, and they use it as a political platform to dictate to us and to suggest how we should live. I'm bloody sick of it.
Yes, I think most people are sick of it as well, Russell. I mean, if you can remember back on the other side of the pond to the last US presidential election, the Democrats were absolutely certain they were going to defeat Trump because they were going to roll out all these celebrities, and they sort of aggregated up the total number of TikTok followers or whatever.
Well, they paid them.
We just need Taylor Swift to remind people to go to the polling station, and the American people just rolled their eyes and yawned. We've got to get back, and a very Formula One thought here, to stick to your lane, basically. And I think that also, I should say on the flip side, I think politicians shouldn't talk about sport very much.
We don't get many politicians thinking that they can qualify faster than Lewis Hamilton through Monaco.
Yeah. But the bit of the virtue signalling I really do mind. Look, I actually don't mind people relocating for tax reasons. I don't mind people minimising their tax bills.
You're not breaking the law.
You're not breaking the law.
But it's the hypocrisy.
Exactly that. So if you tend to be leaning into anything along the lines of, isn't it terrible our public services are underfunded? Isn't it terrible that the government aren't giving nurses a pay rise? Isn't it terrible that there are still people who need more welfare? Well, that coming from the lips of somebody who's legged it to Monte Carlo to make sure those things don't happen.
To secrete his 500 million away. And talking about hapless idiots, let's also talk about David Lammy. Did you see him yesterday on the Sundays?
Well, I mean, I have been thinking really of little else.
How is it not on the front pages, Mark?
Well,
it's not. No one is mentioning his performance on the front page of the newspapers at all, on the basis that this is the Deputy Prime Minister, the Justice Secretary, that goes onto the Sunday shows, gets wheeled out to be the voice, the kind of heartbeat of the Labour government in the face of what's just happened with regard to Henry Novak and that whole tragedy around that and how it's been dealt with thereafter, the castigation of Nigel Farage and so on. And he goes on the BBC to say, first of all, there's definitely no two-tier policing, evident, but then says that by way of some kind of twisted equality, it's okay that equality isn't always equal because there's a context. What kind of shape-shifting nonsense is that?
So, I mean, look, Lammy, it was a complete car crash on every interview he did. I mean, he was
he was eaten alive by Trevor Phillips on Sky. It was absolutely, I've had to watch it 3 times. It's joyous.
What's the comedy?
Yeah. It's like me rewatching my favourite goals in football or something. I mean, it's just disastrous. Look, I rarely start a sentence with saying "in fairness" to David Lammy, but
we do probably need to balance because we have slagged him off for the last 3 hours.
To David Lammy, the government's position is indefensible, right? So usually, if I'm watching the Sunday programmes and it's a politician who's not on my side of the ledger, I do sort of think to myself, if I was in their shoes, what argument would I put? You know, even if it's an argument I completely disagree with and I'm on the other side of the argument. But in Lammy's case, what argument can you put to defend the government's line? It's preposterous.
But particularly when he's then shown the extracts from the constabulary's own website that shows exactly how they portray to their recruits by way of this race action plan or whatever it's called. It specifically says, effectively, as a paraphrase, you should deal with ethnic minorities differently and to the betterment of white people.
Yeah, it's. I've read the Hampshire Police Race Action Plan in full. It is an absolute disgrace. It's littered with things that if you were reading it casually, rather than in the context of the death of Henry Novak, you might think, well, it's a bit fluffy, but it sounds nice. But when you interpret literally, and that's how it should be interpreted.
But it is, because it's effectively a diktat, isn't it? And a training document, or in part, by way of how officers are trained to think on the job.
Correct. And there is now more and more evidence coming out. In my view, we need to have some sort of inquiry in which we ask, 500 police officers from across the land, blind, from somebody who's not from the police force. Are you experiencing a chilling effect on your behaviour and actions in stopping crime in virtue of the DEI training you've received? Everything you say to me now will be taken without prejudice, no fear or favour, will not impact your career.
Anonymous.
Anonymous. And we're already seeing reported by journalists, brilliant piece a few days ago by Alison Pearson, police officers coming forward saying, look, any sniff that I might have said something even marginally racist and my career is over. So it has a huge chilling effect. So put yourself in the shoes of such a police officer. This is not to justify the appalling behaviour of those of them who turned up at the scene of Henry Novak's death in his last moments. But just imagine eating away at the back of your mind, possibly even in your subconscious, right? Not on the front of your cerebral cortex, is this, okay, there's an ethnic minority guy here, there's a white guy there. You're just instinctively of the view, if I do anything that might make me look like a racist, I am probably never going to get promoted. How would you now behave? That's the impact.
But then when you've got a document that backs up your position in terms of allowing you to have that as a crutch by way of favouring brown and black people as opposed to white people.
Oh yeah, this isn't prejudice, it's the bloody law.
But I've been saying for years that this whole kind of woke approach to everything, so whether it's the civil service, education, policing or whatever, will come back to bite us in terms of very real tragic circumstances. And that's now happening because that approach to DEI wouldn't have stopped Henry Novak being stabbed, but it might have helped him survive if there hadn't been such an ultra-bias approach to that crime scene. So maybe, we don't know.
Conceivable. I think, if I'm right, the court record said that as it happens, it looks likely that his life was unsavable, whatever they had done. But that's not the point. The point is what's in the mind of the police officer when they turn up, right? So you might see something
and the police
badly
officer's
injured.
told, as he reaches the scene, this man is lying down, he's got blood in his mouth, and because Digver decides to say, he abused me racially, without question, because of course Henry Novak couldn't speak for himself because he'd been stabbed. So, immediately they handcuff him, and without any hesitation, without any thought or interpretation, immediately assume that the white guy's the bad guy.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And you say immediately handcuff him. I mean, it takes them forever to work out whether his claims made 4 times that he had been stabbed, accompanied by 9 pleas that he cannot breathe. You're supposed to take that seriously. Now, I'm told there was a senior ex-cop who was on some news programme or other last week who said, the thing you're supposed to learn as a police officer, way above all this DEI nonsense that's now drilled into you, are the building blocks of what you do when you arrive at the scene of a crime. And building block 1 is the preservation of human life of everyone, the victim, the
Whoever
suspect, the witnesses, everybody. You know, you're basically indiscriminate. I mean, you've got to be minded slightly to your own safety and those of others. But if there's somebody lying on the floor, even if you are 99% certain they're the murderer, preservation of human life is your top priority. I cannot see from that body cam footage how you could say that that was their top priority. The first thing they should have done, above all else, was to attempt to save
his life.
It's clear that you're looking at someone who might die, and that seems to be a low priority.
And he says, apart from the kind of George Floyd-esque "I can't breathe" 9 times, the police officer says to him, "I don't think you have, mate." I mean, that will ring in people's ears for years, I think, in terms of a display of kind of arrogance, apathy and wrongdoing by way of the police. There's now, of course, also a petition, I don't know if you've seen it, which last time I looked, last night, had reached 160,000 signatures, which is for those police officers that attended that scene to be charged. Now, obviously, evidence has to come before charge. What do you think should happen to the police officers? Do you think they're off the hook because they were following training? Or do you think they are personally culpable in terms of the way that they approach that scene?
Yeah, really interesting question. I think above that is, what do we think the crime was, right? Because, as I say, my understanding of the evidence from the court documents is their atrocious behaviour didn't lead to his death. So manslaughter or whatever.
But could have done.
Well, yeah, but I don't think that is a crime of itself, right? If I do something stupid that doesn't lead to a consequence, I'm not sure what the crime is.
But also, presumably,
so wrongful arrest, perhaps.
But also, saying something racist in itself, is that a handcuffable instance? I'm not sure it is.
I have no, exactly. So I wonder, which, you know, I can totally understand that we're looking at and thinking, completely innocent young man's life has gone. You know, who's going to face the rap for this? And are thinking in terms of assault, manslaughter, murder. I mean, I wonder whether it is actually wrongful arrest. In terms of the training thing, I mean, that's what people would call the Nuremberg defence, right? I'm just following orders. Well, if this copper that I was listening to on the news the other week is correct, they weren't following their training because the first thing they should have done was the preservation. Exactly right. So, which are clearly in conflict, right? But here's the question, right? I don't know what punishment or charge they should face. I mean, I would have thought at the least they should all be fired as police officers.
I think they've resigned, haven't they?
One has retired.
One has retired.
Pension intact.
Yes.
Pension intact.
Coincidental timing.
Right. So, but we were told last week that the rest of them were still on the front line. Right. I mean, I would at least think this ends your career in the police.
Yeah.
If there are criminal charges, it's probably around wrongful arrest. But here is the thing. This is what I don't want us to fall for. If these 3 or 4 cops are punished, that's insufficient because it's the higher ups.
Of course
it's the law
it's the
that we've got to go
that
for.
comes from above.
So be very careful. I bet you the woke politicians and the top brass at Hampshire Police and everywhere else will be more than happy for these people to take the rap. So I'm not saying let them off scot-free. I'm just saying make sure they don't take 100% of the rap.
And the well-worn phrase that we hear in the aftermath of these kind of instances, lessons will be learned. We know that they won't be, don't we?
We do, and going back to the LAMMY thing as well, that
he's in complete denial, as on the front bench of the Labour government.
And I think that I would say this with my economics background, wouldn't I, Russell? But we've got to take an objective and cool look at the statistics, and I did that on my way here this morning. David Lammy seems to think it's incredibly racist because there are sort of more ethnic minority people per capita arrested and in prison than there are the white population. Okay, well, get this. 97% of our prison population is male. Do we have a terribly sexist prison population? I mean, what are the police doing to round up more women? Only 3 or 4% are women. Only 7.5% of our prison population are aged over the age of 60. Whereas that's more than a quarter, I think, of the overall UK population.
So it's almost as
where's
if
the white granny action plan
it's almost
to make
as if
sure that
when a rape is reported, the police must now go out and look for women and men as the perpetrator, completely proportionally.
So we've got to be completely realistic, haven't we? That different demographics, men much more than women. That's the most striking difference. People, under the age of 60 rather than over the age of 60. Different ethnic minority groups behave differently. And we just know this as a matter of fact. If you think there are underlying causes there, maybe the government should do something about it. Maybe we need to improve the quality of housing or education in certain communities. Sure, I get that. But whilst it is a stone cold hard fact in front of our eyes, the police should operate on those stone cold hard facts.
Yes.
By the way, it's worth saying, that might mean because I don't want us to tie ourselves in knots, making it harder to unravel this down the line. That might mean that different groups are treated differently. I think earlier on the show you were saying, if in South London you know overwhelmingly that young black guys in tracksuits are more likely to be carrying a knife than other groups,
then you would target them logically.
You would logically target them. Might even be 100% of your stops and searches. They don't need to be proportionate. If you know there's a 10% chance, for sake of argument, that a young black guy in a tracksuit's wielding a knife, and only a 1% chance that somebody else is, you presumably use all of your stops and searches
I think
on that
Mark, it's
demographic.
what we used to call, what was that thing? Common sense. Do you
Common
remember
sense
that?
and proportionality.
Let me talk to you about something else, which is very similar in terms of it linking. So Malcolm Walker, who's the MD or the chairman of Iceland, not the country, the stores, has come out to say two-tier policing does exist. And he's got a great example, maybe not so great, but it's a poignant and demonstrable example. He reveals that police rushed to one of his stores within 3 minutes because a customer falsely accused one of his members of staff of racism. 3 minutes, various police officers turned up and actually took the member of staff away in handcuffs because of an allegation, unproven, of racism. But he says, when staff were seriously hurt or threatened with violence by shoplifters, they didn't bother attending.
Tells you all you need to know, doesn't it? I mean, operationally, we don't know what's going on. But look, the worst thing about this story, I saw this on social media yesterday, is I'm unsurprised that he's reporting that, aren't you? I mean, we've now had so much of this. 10, 20 years ago, your jaw would have hit the floor if you'd read a story like that. But again, it all goes back to the rules and the guidance. Go back to, no, this wasn't in Hampshire, but I'm sure it's the same thing in other guidance. The Hampshire Race Action Plan has in it a line that we'll all be familiar with now because we hear it so often, that we have zero tolerance for racism. Now, that sounds absolutely fine, doesn't it? I mean, none of us want to say, let's encourage a little bit of racism.
No, but it encourages overreach.
But if you have zero tolerance for racism and some modest degree of tolerance for shoplifting, well, how would you expect the police to react? They've been told that your threshold for racism is zero. A shoplifting offence, a minor assault, well, that won't be prioritised. So again, that framework is what explains the actions on the ground.
Let me give you another example as we talk about the police. Sarah Crew, Chief Constable of Avon and Somerset Police, was the police officer that decided to drop all charges against Bob Villan for his vile Glastonbury, the anti-Semitic rant at Glastonbury. She's also the same officer that previously vowed to arrest and prosecute anyone flying a UK flag, calling it racist.
God almighty. I mean, these people have just got to be weeded out, right? Because
but this is exactly the problem. It's not the rank and file. They're kind of, as you say, they're doing what they're told, with a gun to their head. Because if they don't, of course, they'll fall foul. That's it, right? And actually, career over and booted out the force in disgrace, almost for being a kind of, a racist sympathiser. So how do we get rid of the top echelons of the police service? Those with their PhDs in kind of humanities and masters in the trans movement or whatever they've got. How do we ensure that we get rid of in the future the people at the top of policing that have effectively infected it with this woke mind virus?
Yes, well, to my mind, a lot of people, and oftentimes these things are described as the culture war, aren't they? I mean, which has many different guises, of which this is one. But in my view, this is actually a legal question, not a cultural one. People respond to incentives incredibly rapidly. And actually, quite a lot of these people infected by the woke mind virus, I treat as actually being infected. I'm not sure they're necessarily all ideologues. Some will be. It's just others have read the room and realised, the more rainbow flags are up, the better it will look for me to win the Policeman of the Year award or whatever.
To go along with it.
Change you double down on it. Change the rules. That we say, if you are in any way prioritising DEI over nicking crooks, you will be fired on the spot. We're also going to encourage whistleblowers in your force to come forward if they see any evidence of you prioritising DEI over crime fighting. If there are any public statements that in any way suggest you're doing that, you will be fired. Your priority is to cut crime. And again, going back to Hampshire Police, and although I keep quoting them, it's just because I've studied them, it will be the same the country over. In 2022, they said, the top of our agenda is to encourage anti-racism, inclusion
So not protecting the public, not fighting crime.
Not nicking criminals. No. Anti-racism.
Their priority is anti-racism.
Top priority, they said. Now, we've just got to be realistic here. You know, I don't want a police force riddled with racism. But it is not the top priority. It isn't. No. It might be priority 48 or something.
Do you think also the priority of the Manchester Fire Service under Andy Burnham should not be to write letters to the entire fire service to ask them if they are concerned and in some way offended by the fact that some of their fraternity have decided to become reform councillors?
Yeah.
That actually happened.
This is unbelievable, isn't it?
This has happened.
The trade unions.
I mean, freedom of speech? Yeah. Is this fascism? Is this Andy Burnham overreaching?
Yeah, I think we've got to have a whole new look at trade unions because, in my view, if they want privileges under the law, and they are privileged under the law, trade unions aren't treated like joining the chess club or the bridge club or the Women's Institute. There's particular statutes that give them particular rights. I think going alongside that, we should expect a certain degree of neutrality. If you want to set up a club or an association which agrees that all the members of it support a particular political party and you'll be kicked out if you support another one, fine, but it shouldn't be part of a privileged guild attached to a particular profession.
Well, and a biased one, because I'm sure that when FBU members decide to be Labour Party candidates or Lib Dem councillors, the same missive doesn't go out to the membership to say, are you okay with this? Yep. We're here for you just in case you're concerned or offended, and because this might disrupt the equality of our organisation, which were the words that were used in that letter, which indirectly, let's be clear, has come from Andy Burnham.
It's so mad, isn't it? We're going around pretending everybody is unbelievably thin-skinned. Right, I can totally get that some people might not like or support the Reform Party. I get that, but the idea that you're in a state of clinical shock, that somebody in your workplace, I can barely cope because one of the people I work with has indicated to me that they might vote Reform.
I think someone here that I'm offended by because they're worried about crime and patriotism and open borders and high taxation. I mean, how offensive?
Yeah, quite. I mean, the idea that we're all working in this permanent state of edginess. But here's the thing for Reform UK, I think. Given that this opinion poll came out, health warnings, one opinion poll, etc., showing now, isn't it, as many trade unionists support Reform UK as support Labour.
Yep.
Don't you think Nigel Farage should invite some trade unions to disaffiliate from Labour and affiliate to Reform UK instead? Let's have a members' ballot of the Fire Brigades Union or some of the others.
Maybe we'll get to that, but look, I'm also a believer in the free market, and of course, if trade unions want to kind of absolve themselves of their traditional shackles and move elsewhere, then they should be free to do exactly that.
You should make a full and generous offer to them, Russell.
I'm not sure we need to make any offer. It sounds like they're coming over to us anyway.
Yeah. Well, about the members, get the members. I think you'll find it's everywhere, isn't it? The rank and file, the ordinary person, the average man or woman on the street has got a hell of a lot more common sense and decency than the layers above them. And the higher you go up, the worse it gets.
Indeed. Mark Littlewood, on that note, thank you very much indeed. We're going to swap you for Simon Danchuk in a minute, but I'm being told I've got to do some news. Maybe we haven't done enough. We need to do some super chats as well. Definitely going to get to those in a second. Here's the news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning, I'm Edward Hughes. Instead of sorting knife crime or whatever, we're all screaming about migration while JD Vance chimes in from across the pond and Elon Musk stirs the pot online. Keir Starmer's team is on damage control, calling it all nonsense. Classic. Royal Mail finally delivers a new parent magazine to a dad, 19 years late. Peak post office efficiency. M&S is heroically training 1,000 young people, not in jobs or education, because nothing says, we've got this like a retailer stepping in where the system failed. A man arrested 22 years after another teen killing. Justice. Fashionably late as ever. And somewhere in all this, royals had a wedding, and the economy's wobbling thanks to distant wars. God save the Queen, or whoever's in charge? Brilliant. Laters, tigers.
Coming soon, it's your chance to watch the fantastic Mike Graham and Friends live show from the O2 Shepherd's Bush Empire in May of this year. Many of you came and enjoyed the banter, the jokes and the serious moments as well, but many more of you were unable to join us for the memorable night. So now we want to offer you the chance to soak up the atmosphere in the comfort of your own home. Watch the brilliant Lewis MacLeod rattle through his impressions of Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, Keir Starmer, Nigel Farage, King Charles and even me, believe it or not. Chortle Intel Lady's hilarious depictions of Angela Rayner Hannah Spencer and Bridget Phillipson. Enjoy regular features like Plank of the Night, drink along with a special plonk presentation and the entire cast of the show. Witness the star-studded night with Carol Decker, Right Said Fred, and loads of our regular guests like Will Geddes, Layla Cunningham, Russell Quirk, Marilyn Hayes, Stephen Barrett, Anna McGovern, William Yarwood, even Christo makes an appearance. To help us cover the production costs, we're charging just £10 to you. But if you're a paid subscriber to Substack or a YouTube show member, you can access the 2-hour performance for free. Thanks to all of you for supporting our brand new channel. We will be doing more live shows in due course, but for right now, this is your only chance to watch us all on stage together.
Never did I think that I'd be sitting on the stage at Chefs of Rouge Empire with you two legends, the Bright Said Fred guys. I mean, fantastic. I mean, have you seen? I mean, you probably.
What a fabulous night that was! Honestly, what an absolute honour and a delight to be part of that. It was fabulous, and talking to the audience was in the bar was brilliant. It was I felt like a bit of a Rolling Stone. I have to say, it was absolutely mad. And I said to Mike at the time, and to Pooch, and to Charlotte, who are obviously running things behind the scenes, it wasn't just people there enjoying themselves. It was people coming up to me at that event last month saying that they feel that Mike Graham and the Mike Graham Show and the team are effectively kind of the saviours of their own sanity and common sense as people in Britain worried about the direction that this country's taking. And because otherwise you've got, I suppose, the choices of the likes of Channel 4 and ITV, the BBC and Sky, this kind of left-leaning, woke virtue signalling nonsense that doesn't report news and opinion fairly and properly, in fact doesn't really have an opinion, apart from to pretend that their left-wing bias is news. That the Mike Graham Show, particularly now that it's unsanitised and completely unhooked and uncensored from the likes of Ofcom, actually provides solace, a crutch, for people in Britain that are commonsensical and maybe centre-right leaning to actually feel that there are people like them, like us, like I'm doing now, like Mike has done pretty much every day on this show and obviously on a previous channel before that, extolling the virtues of common sense and sanity. It was incredibly humbling to be at that show. Are there going to be more, Pooch?
Yes, we're more coming up.
Good, more coming up. Can't wait, and no doubt there'll be a difference to them in terms of them having some kind of edge versus the first one. But it was absolutely fantastic. I'm joined now by Simon Danchuk, good mate of mine. I liked Simon very, very much, even though he used to be Labour, didn't you?
I did many years ago.
Why?
Yeah. Why? Good question. Well, it used to be traditional centre-right Labour. That's what I always was.
Blue Labour.
Blue Labour, you would call it today. That's right. But, we stood for something in those days. We stood for the working people, didn't we? That's why it's called the Labour Party. But that's not what it is today.
When did it lose its way?
Oh, I think it began to lose its way, certainly under Tony Blair and then into Brown. But once we hit Miliband, Ed Miliband, I mean, everything was lost. This North London
could
Labour,
be our next Prime Minister.
Yeah, he could. I mean, that would be scary.
That is scary.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? You look at the Labour Party today, and they're that poorly qualified to run the country that they can't even find somebody to stand as the leader. They have to bring in a retread in Andy Burnham.
Despite the fact they've got 400 MPs, they can't find anyone decent enough amongst them.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we'll see what prevails, I suppose, in terms of the inevitable leadership election. I mean, the contenders are, we think, obviously Andy Burnham, he wins in Makerfield. We'll come back to that in a second. Angela Rayner, Ed Miliband, and of course Wes Streeting. Who do you think's the favourite out of those?
I think Andy Burnham would be the favourite. I think he's a big mistake. I've known Andy 20 years.
Well, you were MPs almost in adjacent constituencies.
Not far from each other, that's right. And he visited Rochdale on a number of occasions when I was the candidate and Member of Parliament. That's how I know him. But you've got to remember, he's been rejected twice by the Labour Party to be leader. So not only is he
rejected by the National Executive only a few months ago.
Well, yes, yeah, exactly. That's a good point. And he also stood against Ed Miliband and lost, and he stood against Corbyn and lost, and yet they think he's the right person to do the job now. They are desperate. And if you go back, we were talking about Tony Blair, all the talent that was in the cabinet in those days, from David Blunkett, Joe Morlam, there was so much talent around in those days, but you're struggling to find any talent in the Labour Party nowadays.
Yeah. And who would have thought, 2 or 3 years ago, that you'd be talking about a centre-right party like Reform up in the kind of Labour heartlands running Labour very, very close. So who knows what will happen, but there's probably only 3 or 4 points in it right now, according to the polls. A centre-right party up in Labour Heartland running Labour close in terms of a by-election. Has Makerfield ever been anything other than Labour?
I don't think it has. I think it's always been Labour. It's incredible that Labour are struggling to hold on to it. It tells you everything you need to know about Labour, doesn't it? Yeah. I come from that part of the world, as you can tell with my accent, although I live in London now. And people just always voted Labour. I mean, that was the tradition. But they've cut themselves away from those hard-working people so much that they're struggling even to hold on to Makerfield.
Let's just hold that thought. There's a couple of super chats that I must read out, which I forgot to do. Sorry, I think is that my second mistake, Pooch? Sorry, it's not bad. It's not bad in 2.5 hours, is it?
Oh, well
so this is Real Thinking Monkey. Do I have to be very careful how I read these names out, just in case someone's decided to label themselves as something very rude and sweary? Real Thinking Monkey. Says Christo has summed this up perfectly. I guess that's what we were talking about earlier on with Christo, he and I, with regard to 2-tier policing. Also here, Scalping Queen -Q9V. Imagine a 1,000 beard up Brits eating roast beef and singing Land of Hope and Glory together. Wonderful. Yeah, I'd go to that, wouldn't you? Would you, Simon?
Yeah,
well, I'm
so.
going to show you that clip as well in a minute,
Good.
see if you subscribe to this. And also, Hey Judy Jew says, doing a great job right here, his political prosperity. Unlike Rob Kenyon, who's just a salt the earth, down to earth plumber, councillor, and actually wants to be representing the town and constituency of Makerfield for all the right reasons, in my opinion. Just watch this clip just for a sec, Simon, and just let's get your comments on it in a sec.
Andy, can I ask you why you didn't support the rape gang inquiry?
I ordered one, so...
No, you didn't, because
yes,
you covered it up, and you didn't support...
Take a look at the facts before you...
No, I do know the facts, and the people do know the facts, and you didn't, and neither did the Labour government either.
I ordered one in 2017.
So why hasn't it happened then?
Well, it has. Go and read the
It hasn't happened at all, you covered it up.
Online. No, I didn't.
You absolutely did.
Go and read the reports online.
Well, I mean,
one into Manchester, one into Oldham, one into Rochdale.
Let's just presume that you're telling the truth that you didn't. So then why the prosecution's not being done from that then? I do know the facts, and you're lying to people. No, I don't need to stand in front of me, thank you. So also, are you trying to protect your candidate because you know that I'm telling the truth? That's why you're trying to stand in front of me. Yeah, but I was just speaking to him. Do you have a problem speaking to somebody? Do you have a problem speaking to somebody? Team around, yeah? We're not even being aggressive, but look, you want to walk away. We clearly know that what you've done. You protect them to protect the Muslim bloc vote. But let your little gang hang around, yeah? I can come and catch up with you if you like, but I wouldn't want you to be too scared. You know, like how those...
Simon, not a good look for Andy Burnham there. Obviously, look, he's got history when it comes to the rape gangs. Let's call them what they actually are. Yep. The rape gangs of the likes of Rochdale and Telford and everywhere else. Confronted there by someone that's obviously angry with his lack of action. Andy Burnham's response is, yeah, but I did actually instigate a number of inquiries. But of course, what he doesn't tell us was that the inquiries that he instigated were lightweight, lily-livered, sticking plaster type inquiries, because they were based on what they call local inquiries, which could not compel people to come and give evidence. So it was all very voluntary, as opposed to a proper statutory inquiry, the one that the Labour government, of course, hesitated on a few months ago, which would have actually been a proper and thorough process by way of making people give evidence. Is Andy Burnham being disingenuous there with that person confronting him in terms of his action on grooming gangs in the past?
Yeah, absolutely. Andy is being disingenuous there, and I think the resident is exactly right. The resident said it, didn't he? What prosecutions came from the inquiries that you held, Andy? And that's the ultimate answer, isn't it? And I speak with some authority on this. I was the Member of Parliament from 2010 to 2017 for Rochdale. In 2012, the Rochdale grooming scandal broke, and I campaigned heavily on it. And it's all on public record. I campaigned heavily on it. I said that race and ethnicity were a key factor in these issues. People in the Labour Party tried to shut me down for saying that, but I ignored them. And it's fair to say, as that resident has pointed out, that anything that's gone since then has been effectively a cover-up, including Andy Burnham's inquiries. They are just, artificial to try and show that some action's been taken, but the reality is no action has really been taken. He's helped cover it up on behalf of Greater Manchester Police, who really failed, not just the police, local authorities as well, social services, really failed the victims in this, and I've studied this in detail. I know
so the audacity of a man that seeks election to Parliament again so that he can become Prime Minister, who knows in his heart of hearts that he's applied, as I say, a sticking plaster approach to grooming gang inquiries, for whatever reason, we'll get to that in a second, now has the audacity to face the people of Makerfield, knowing that it may well have been some of their daughters, granddaughters that were subjected to those largely Pakistani rape gangs. I mean, he's got some brass neck, hasn't he, to seek election in the very place or adjacent to the very place that he abandoned as an MP and a mayor, insofar as the person that could have helped bring some of those people to justice sooner and therefore stop further assaults.
Oh, and Andy Burnham has more front than Blackpool Promenade. I mean, he goes before the cameras and everything else, and yet he isn't held to account on some of these issues. And I think he's really failed the people of Greater Manchester. Well, I think it would be dangerous to have him as Prime Minister, no doubt about that. I didn't support him. I was in the Labour Party when he ran for leader, and I didn't support him then on the 2 occasions that he ran, and I certainly wouldn't support him now. He is not an effective leader. He isn't somebody you would want.
Not just ineffective, but also inauthentic.
Yeah,
by the sounds of it.
totally, yeah.
And also a man, as I put to Anne Widdecombe earlier on, that is to the left of Starmer. So, Starmer doesn't tend to stand for much. I mean, we know he doesn't have much of a belief or a vision, but he has as his instinct socialism, Keir Starmer. What we're talking about here in the shape of Andy Burnham is someone that actually wants to go further in terms of taxing wealth, further in terms of penalising and oppressing and effectively ridding the country of landlords, advocates open borders, going back into the EU, and now, this weekend, has also advocated that we should be, these are my words, but incentivising asylum seekers to come to Britain and allowing them to work by way of that further incentive. I would call him dangerous.
The biggest problem, and you're illustrating it there, Russell, with Andy Burnham, is that he flip-flops. And that's not good, strong leadership. That's not what the country wants.
He's lying to Makerfield now, isn't he? Because, of course, he's not saying what his true credentials are on things like welfare, on things like immigration and so on, and the EU. He's backpedaled on all of that stuff because, of course, particularly when it comes to the EU, Makerfield voted 65% to leave. Yeah. So he's a square peg in a round hole.
He's saying anything and everything to get elected. So he's shifted to the left because he knows that the party membership, who are ultimately going to vote for who the Labour leader is, are centre-left. They're more left-wing than most Labour MPs. So he's shifted to that position. He used to be a Blairite. Then he was a Brownite. Then he became a Milibandite, and then changed to.
So he's a shape-shifting chameleon.
Oh, honestly,
but that's everything that we hate about Keir Starmer and Ed Miliband and everybody else in the Labour Party on the front bench. That they'll say anything, as they did, to get elected by way of their manifesto. The minute they're in power, the manifesto gets ripped up and they do what they were going to do anyway. It's electoral fraud, Simon. I mean, it's deception.
It is electoral fraud. That's a good description.
Shouldn't there be a contract between the politicians that spout these promises and pledges and the public that get absorbed by those pledges and promises? It should be like a contract in business, a contract between you and I. Yeah. I'm selling you something for 20 quid. I expect the 20 quid and I expect, the contract to be carried out.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in politics, it seems now that the public have got completely and utterly used to the fact that politicians will say, Andy Burnham's just said that he's going to cut business rates on pubs to allow them to breathe financially. I don't believe him. I think he's lying. I just don't think he's going to do that. Assuming he becomes Prime Minister.
Well, if you look at his business rates suggestions, proposals, they're completely unrealistic. I think they total something like £7 billion. Where's he going to get the money from? Totally uncosted. He says he's going to put higher business rates on warehouses. Most warehouses aren't Amazon. They are Sainsbury's, Lidl, Aldi. They're the big warehouses.
Small business owners.
Yeah. Well, the supermarkets, so the price of food is going to go up dramatically. But returning to him being a chameleon, exactly right. I was once described as by the Financial Times as Corbyn's most fiercest critic. And the point I'm making here is, credit to Corbyn, he always stood by what he said.
Yeah.
He didn't change
his view. He's been like Nigel Farage.
Yes,
completely
absolutely,
consistent. Consistent.
So whilst I totally disagree with his politics, credit to him. And the public used to give him credit for that, actually, that he would stand by what he is. But that's not what we're getting with Andy Burnham. He is the opposite. He is much worse than Starmer in actual fact. Yeah. And Starmer's appalling.
What's going to happen up there on the 18th? You've been up there, I think, on the doors.
Yeah, I've been up
as
there.
I have. I was up there 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
My feeling was, albeit I'm going back a couple of weeks now, and obviously in politics, 10 minutes is a long time these days, let alone a week. It felt that there was a significant amount of reform support on the basis of exasperation with the status quo, if you like. The Uni Party, the Conservatives, I mean, the Conservatives I think are polling at 2%, so let's forget them for a second. What's your feeling up there in terms of genuinely what you think is going to happen on the 18th?
I think it'll be really close. There was some...
Do you think Restore are going to ruin it for Reform?
Oh, I think they could take some votes. They had a big, strong presence on the day that I was up there. Whether they were actually campaigning is a different issue, but there was a strong presence. I saw them out and about, etc. And there was quite a few posters for Burnham, particularly amongst older people who are just traditional Labour and aren't going to change at this stage. But Reform were doing very well. I think it'll be really close. I think it'll be hard to call.
Yeah, I think there's 3 or 4% in it.
Yeah.
And look, I think if Reform do lose it by 3 or 4% and Restore poll at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10%, I think that's the latest set of numbers that I've seen. This will be on Rupert Lowe, won't it?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I think they should have stayed out of it. I'm not sure what game Rupert is playing. And I quite like
Rupert's playing, and look, I think he's an articulate individual.
Yes.
I agree with some of what he says. I also think he's quite extreme, particularly when it comes to his view on immigration. Too extreme for me.
Yeah.
But Rupert Lowe and Restore are just an anti-Nigel Farage party, aren't they?
Yeah, I think that's how they come across. Absolutely right. And
it's almost like just a bitterness.
Yeah.
Whatever's gone on, none of my business, way above my pay grade.
Yeah.
But it seems that Rupert is just hell-bent on beating Nigel rather than doing perhaps what the right thing for the country is. And I think that could be about to be demonstrated on the 18th of June in Makerfield.
Yeah, and I agree with, and to illustrate that point about Restore, some of its membership, you know, I'm married to
Coco,
who's Rwandan, black woman, and I posted something up on social media recently, and some of the racism that I got because I'm married to a black woman, and if you look at the bio of some of them, Restore supporters, Restore members. So I think Rupert has a challenge there in terms of his political party. I really do.
So the flip side, of course, is that some would argue that actually the bad people have been filtered in terms of the extremists out of Reform and have become Restore members. Do you subscribe to that?
Yeah, that could well be. That's an interesting point.
Yeah. Someone said to me the other day, not necessarily my view, but someone said to me the other day, Restore are the new BNP.
That's interesting.
He doesn't want to be drawn on that, does he?
No.
Okay. Other thing that we haven't talked about, which I should have done in the last 3 hours, is this mad scheme by the Labour government to invest in businesses. Did you see this?
No.
This is Peter Kyle, who's never had a proper job in his life, has decided that he wants to invest, inverted commas, lots and lots of taxpayers' money into startups, tech businesses and so on, in order to push this thing that they keep calling growth. I don't think the Labour government have any idea what growth really is. Actually, if you want to grow, and in fact there's new GDP numbers out on Thursday, so assume that I haven't been fired by Pooch by then, we'll be bringing those GDP numbers to you live on Thursday morning. So growth is the GDP number by way of the increase in the value and therefore the prosperity of the economy. In my opinion, the only way you do that is by incentivising small business owners, wealth creators, entrepreneurs, to open businesses, to employ people. That then translates into growth. The way to encourage that is by cutting taxes. Cut corporation tax, cut the highest rate of tax, get rid of inheritance tax, make people feel incentivised to work hard, and it trickles down. What the Labour government think is that if you spend money on infrastructure by way of public sector involvement, which then is fueled by their own borrowing, which obviously comes at quite a price. If you do that, then that equates to growth. One of their advisors has clearly said over the last few days, tell you what, why don't we invest in some businesses on the basis that somehow might also promote growth? Well, the problem is, I don't have a lot of faith in Peter Kyle or Angela Rayner in the future, or Rachel Reeves, or Jonathan Reynolds, whoever. Some of those people, by the way, have fibbed on their CVs for a start. I don't think they make it past the first 30 seconds of a Dragon's Den inquisition. They don't know the first thing about business. They don't know the first thing about investing. So Peter Kyle, I looked at his CV yesterday, never had a proper job, never run a business, never been an investor, doesn't know anything about economics, doesn't know anything about business. He's worked in the charitable sector, and he's worked for the Labour Party and been an MP. He's going to take tens of millions of pounds of taxpayers' money and funnel it into businesses that he is completely unqualified to invest in. But I guess from their point of view, it's a good headline, is it?
Yeah, I think it's a return to the 1970s, isn't it? I mean, it's a complete nonsense. Labour said, it's time and again, Stormer said, our number one priority is growth of the economy. That will fund, expansion of public services and all the rest. It's been an absolute disaster.
And what's the country growing at in terms of GDP? Barely 1% a year.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Barely 1%.
Yeah, you look around the developing world. I'm in Bangladesh tomorrow. That's growing by about 6 or 7%.
Argentina under Milei is growing by about 7 or 8%. The US is growing. Poland.
I've just come
lots
back from
of countries within the EU growing much higher than we are.
Oh, absolutely. I've just come back
and
from...
some not. Germany not, by the way.
I've just come back from Rwanda. That's growing by well over 5%. I mean, everybody's growing except Britain because Labour have got the wrong economic approach. I mean, there's no doubt about that, is there? The country's failing economically. And this will not be a solution. Civil servants, politicians, Labour politicians, making decisions about investing in the private sector. I mean, it's a recipe for disaster. I was a Labour MP 2010 to 2017, just about 300 Labour MPs, and I was one of the few who had a proper job and who had run a business. I mean, the number of people in the Parliamentary Labour Party who've run a business, you could count on one hand then. Yeah. I bet there aren't any in the Parliamentary Labour Party now that have ever run a business.
Yeah, indeed. So completely incapable in terms of their knowledge and experience of doing what they're setting out to do. Before you go, got 5 minutes. I want to show you a clip which is French-based. Le Canon Français. Just have a look at this. I'd like your opinion on whether we should do this in Britain, because I think it's thoroughly, celebratorily patriotic, but it's been criticised in France by the far left as being far right, and that nationalism and singing patriotic songs whilst eating food and drinking wine is a terribly far right, fascist thing to do. Just get this for a sec.
So this is one of those Canon Français banquets. As you can see, there are thousands of people here sitting on these long tables on benches, eating good French local food, good French local wine, generally having a good time. The ambiance, I would say, is halfway between a rugby international and one of those feasts at the end of the Asterix books. Now, the organisers say they're simply answering a crying need in the French countryside and provinces for a chance to celebrate tradition, terroir, that means locality, local food, and that's all there is to it.
So Simon, you get the gist. A celebration of patriotism or a celebration of far-right thuggery, according to the left in France. Do you think we could get away with doing that, or do you think that we'd be criticised by The Guardian and Channel 4 and Newsnight that this was a celebration of fascism and Nazism in some way?
Oh, sure, we'd be criticised, but I think we should do it. I think it's fantastic.
Would it be brilliant?
The nearest thing I could think of while I was watching that is I regularly get invited annually to Bolton Beer Festival, and it's not quite on that scale, but it's a load of people enjoying booze, and there's a great buffet on and loads of pies and stuff. We were talking about Wigan earlier. This is the place to go for pies up in the northwest, and it's a good celebration. It's not dissimilar to that. Do you know what I mean? Not quite as grand.
But this is happening. There's not just one instance, it's happening over and over again. I think there's an enterprising millionaire type, a hospitality entrepreneur, a kind of Tim Martin type, or an Adam Brooks type that has decided that actually, by way of making a few quid, but also celebrating French pride and patriotism, that he's putting these on left, right and centre across the whole of France. So he's earning a few quid. And I think it's a wonderful thing to see. I think Anne Widdecombe talked earlier on about this being almost kind of synonymous with the old Jubilee street parties of years ago. And I see that. I see exactly that. Yeah. But I bet that this would be either criticised or worse, you'd actually have it infiltrated by the media that would be trying to pick out the one idiot that decides to do or say something stupid. And then probably the police would be called and everyone would be arrested.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. But I think we should give it a try. I think it'd be immensely popular. And you look at the numbers that were there, it's massive turnout.
Thousands.
So popular.
Thousands.
We need to be more patriotic. We need to be doing more of that. We need to be celebrating our culture. And most other countries across the world do it. Yeah. We're the minority in terms of countries.
Pooch is licking his lips over there. I think he's actually potentially interested in putting this on. Why the hell not? Why the hell not? Talking of Pooch, Simon, before you go, we're going to do a bit of Pooch's Pooch. Let's have a look at this.
Siéntate. Siéntate.
Huh?
Siéntate. Sit. Ollie, échate. 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 Down. Ollie, sit. Ollie, vueltita.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Vueltita.
Trying to understand.
Vueltita. Spin.
Learning
Ollie,
Spanish, isn't it?
Yeah. Ollie, patita. Patita.
What?
Patita. Paw. Good boy.
What a dog.
A very, very clever dog. A very, very clever dog, but only if you speak to it in English, not Spanish. Not that one.
Are they real?
Bless.
They're your dogs, right?
They're my dogs.
What are they called again?
Ronnie and Reggie. There's Ronnie and Reggie, my dogs. So they're not really called Ronnie and Reggie. I've kind of named them that just for comedic effect. That is Muttley, Hungarian Vizsla number 1, and Finley, Hungarian Vizsla number 2, that I stuck into Grok AI. And it came up with the two of them. So it's actually them, but clearly they're not skiers. As hopefully most people realise. So big AI warning there. Yeah, comments. I probably haven't read as many of these out as I should have done. There's been, I don't know, hundreds of comments. Polly2220 says, love the show, so interesting. Well, thank you very much. Russell is absolutely fantastic. Well, look, guys, thank you. I do appreciate that. I'm very humbled. I'm no Mike Graham, I know that, but we've had a good go. A great super chat here from, wow, a long BGT 54RFVCDE name, but I won't do the rest. Great show. And also, Russell, you've been really interesting today. Great insight. What do you mean today? I'm always interesting. How dare you? Dodgy Git says, where's Mike? You really haven't been paying attention, have you, Dodgy Git? He's at the Chagos Islands. I've told you that. He's there trying to hold fort because Trump is about to try and buy it once we give it up to Mauritius. He's there on holiday, and I'm sure there'll be some pictures. Oh, there he is. Look, there is Mike Graham in the sea. No, hang on. It looks like he's been swept out to sea at Southend.
Yeah.
Dear, oh dear. I think Mike can probably provide better pictures than that. But right, ladies and gentlemen, I think for my first stand-in show for the wonderful Mike Graham, who is having a very, very well-deserved rest, that's where he is. That's all from me for the last 3 hours. Thank you to Simon, thank you to Mark, thank you very much to Pooch and Charlotte and Avina. It's been an okay show, I think, isn't it? Hopefully, well, hey! Hopefully you'll come back tomorrow. Back tomorrow, 7 o'clock for the Mike Graham show. See you then.